Yeah, we're live. Hi, guys.
Welcome to the show, everybody. You're listening to The Confessionals. I'm your host, Tony Merkel. Thanks for being here. You crazy, wild experience you want to share with me on the show, go ahead and shoot me an email. My email address is theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. That's theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. Or go to the website, theconfessionalspodcast.com. Hit the contact section, and you can reach me that way as well. Either way works for me. Just get a hold of me.
Hey, Diane, good to see you.
Basis. Go to theconfessionalspodcast.com.
Yeah, Mum come home last night, thank God, Diane, eh?
Join button and become a member, because with that membership you get a bonus show every Thursday right there on the website or the Castos app. Plus you get the Tuesday shows, ad-free listening, and any overtime conversation we have. And today is one of those episodes where you're going to hear this episode, and then immediately after that there is an overtime conversation available as well. So if that interests you, hit theconfessionalspodcast.com and become a member to get access to all of that exclusive content. Now, friends, we are talking about it again because it is a very serious thing. Prepare with theconfessionals.com.
Diane, our prayers always work. Even Gabe says that. She says your guys' prayers always work.
With inflation through the roof and even these storms coming through. I've been seeing people posting pictures online of bare shelves in the stores because of all the snow coming through the Northeast. People are panicking. And actually, I only heard that it's supposed to be 2 inches, but still, the store shelves are bare. So if you want to make sure you and your family are good in case I'm wrong and it's a blizzard and you don't have any food at home, make sure you're prepared with preparewiththeconfessionals.com. There you can get yourself emergency supply food and survival gear. The food will last you 25 years on the shelf. We're always running great deals. And with the survival
hey, Shawty, good to see you.
Great stuff waiting for you right there at preparewiththeconfessionals.com. Now, YouTube, we got some news, friends. Kind of. Go to the Confessionals on YouTube, hit subscribe, follow us there, hit the alarm bell button, and you can make sure you're notified then every time we post on the YouTube channel, because the Dog Man documentary is around the corner. Do I have a date? No, I do not have a date. But I was talking to the producers, and they are winding down.
I'll turn the light off. It's glaring.
It should be almost produced complete within the next few weeks, I would say. And with that, we released a teaser video on the YouTube channel. Go ahead and check it out. It's the Confessionals on YouTube. We released a teaser video, about a minute and a half, a little bit of a trailer, but it's not the official trailer. We're going to come out with an official trailer, and we're going to release it right there on the Confessionals YouTube channel. So go over there, check it out, hit subscribe. Thank you very much. And while we're talking about Legion of Legends and the documentaries we're doing, hit up the Instagram account, Legion of Legends. That's Legion_of_Legends. You can go ahead and follow us on there. We'll be posting all our pictures and videos right there on the Instagram account. Thank you very much for doing that. And before we get into today's episode, I want to kind of explain again, if you haven't heard yesterday's episode, it's called Reloaded. I'm going to start playing episodes from the archive on Reloaded Mondays. And so every Monday, I'm going to play an archive episode. We're going to call it TC Reloaded or something like that, but it's going to be a reloaded episode right there waiting for you. And I thought this week would be a great week because we have Tony Rodriguez coming on the show today, and I played his original episode with me from episode 91 yesterday, Monday. So if you want to make sure that you're always up to date with refreshing your memory when it comes to episodes we played, we are going to start playing reloaded episodes every Monday right there on the stream for everybody. So if you're like, man, I remember hearing this one episode and I can't remember exactly which one it is, but they talked about this. I get those emails all the time. Bad news is I don't remember either, but the good news is we're going to start doing Reloaded Mondays, which means you have a good chance of hearing that episode again, jogging your memory like, oh, that's the one. Okay, now I can send it to my mom. So anyways, friends, that's what we're doing with Reloaded Mondays. It's going to be a reloaded episode. I'm really excited about it. I thought it was a cool idea, and we're going to start doing it every Monday. Now this week we do have Tony Rodriguez coming on the show, and he is from episode 91. He is the alien abducted time traveler, and he comes back on for another conversation. This was a very general conversation. We didn't really have a specific way we wanted to go about doing this.
Okay, that's a pretty big claim.
So we had a general free-flowing conversation, and with that free-flowing conversation, we did say some things that I was thinking, I don't know if that should be mentioned on the show or not, because we originally recorded this to be a one-episode kind of thing, but with what we were talking about in the second half, I just was kind of not totally sure if I should put that on YouTube or not. So we made this an overtime episode. So the first hour, it's right here in public.
Diane, that's shocking that a pastor can be involved in that. That's just stunning.
and then the last 40 minutes of the conversation is right there for the overtime segment for members only. So with that said, let's get to Tony Rodriguez right now. All right.
If you find dark chocolate a little bitter or overpowering, discover Lindt Excellence. Fine quality dark chocolate is actually balanced, rich, and delicious. Discover excellence, expect delicious.
You could win 4 Gold Coast apartments, a car, holiday, and gold. Search Dream Home Art Union today.
Today I'm creating lush, shiny waves with the new Lady Jane
Oh,
Aria
come
Wave
on,
Air
Eds.
Styler. The protective air styling technology seals the
Visit your LDV dealer for a test drive today. LDV, bring it on.
Right, today we have a returning guest. The long anticipated, the prodigal son returns. Tony. And Tony, how are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Good. I've been staying busy.
Dude, I'm glad you're here. So let me tell you something, man. I'm uploading my archive of shows to YouTube, and I'm working through from like the newest to the oldest, and so I have like 100 episodes to go, and I recently am hitting about episode 100, and I was skimming through what I had, and I was like, oh, Tony's gonna be coming up here soon. I gotta upload Tony Rodriguez to YouTube here, and I was like, I should have Tony Rodriguez back on the show. It was episode 91, and we're about to break 400. I mean, shoot, when this thing airs, maybe it will be episode 400. I don't know. So, it's just one of those things where I was like, man, we got to reconnect, and I'm glad you're here, man.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's very cool. I'm happy to see the success and how your expand growth is done since we talked, man. You're killing it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's been a long time. It's been a long journey. But listen, Tony, I think what we're going to do today is I want to give people maybe a refresher course as to who you are, because there's a lot of new listeners that probably never listened to episode 91. And if they could be informed as to who this Tony Rodriguez is and why is our Tony so excited to talk to this Tony, and let them know about that.
Yeah.
But, to give people like maybe like a summary here before.
Yeah, I was watching that, Diane, and they're single-digit people, like, you know what I mean? Underage people. He's gone.
You get into it. You and I connected years ago, and I think it was shortly.
Diane, are you watching that lawyer guy who's calling him the diddler? Are you watching him as well? He's funny, isn't he?
After you started talking about this stuff publicly, but you were talking about the whole 20 and back situation where you have these memories of abduction and what happened during that abduction, and it kind of blew people's minds, man. And I know it's a long story, so we may not be able to get into the whole thing, but if you could maybe give a summary, because I want to let the people know also that
Diane, I've been watching his other stuff, that lawyer, and he's self-snitching. Like when you give a statement of the coppers, he calls it self-snitching, and he's right, it is.
You are now podcasting. You have a book coming out, and so
Yeah,
we're going to
okay,
find out what's happening with you now,
Okay.
but also some of the new things that are developing within this
Was
whole
it?
community of people who are
Well, Dave wouldn't let
have been
message.
abducted and going through these things.
Sure. That's a lot.
I know.
So, So I recently did a show. I did a live talk in Detroit Disclosure 2 weekends ago, and it was the first time I did a live show where I asked people to raise hands in the audience if they ever heard of my information before. Who's heard of my story? Yeah, could show hands, and hardly anybody. Like 2 people rose. I was like, wow, I'm in front of an audience that doesn't even. I said, have you heard of a 20 and back? Nobody. The same 2 people. I went, oh, here we go. So this is kind of it was a challenge. It's almost embarrassing to really talk about stuff that's so far.
Yep, they're claiming Jamie Foxx was poisoned. Yep, exactly. And I've seen one of these lawyers like we were just talking about. He reckons they're going to find bodies, if you know what I mean. He said they're going to find bodies. That'd have to be Tupac and Biggie Small, wouldn't it?
Different.
And Kurt Cobain.
from what people think about a UFO in ufology. Some people are at different levels because people have to come to ufology to learn about it. So
Yep.
they learn one level. And
Diane, do you remember we thought it was the vax? What happened to Jamie Foxx?
then they put it on a shelf for a year and come back to ufology. So ufology keeps going, right? And then the 20 and back stuff, the secret space program developments, a lot of people are just unaware. And so when you really explain that the military has access to work, and the military has access and has contracts with extraterrestrials and it's hard to distinguish who's working for who, use that technology to abduct people and use them in labor or warfare or whatever else they want in throughout colonies in the solar system. And then they have here's where you lose people, when they have the technology to put people back. They live for 20 years.
Shawnee, I don't think it'll be another Epstein because there's no political dudes involved. It's all entertainment dudes. There would be the occasional political dude involved, but it's mainly the entertainment. So the Epstein, you mean will they knock him off? I don't think they will. I think they'll do Rob Kelly on him and lock him up forever.
And then they go back in time and they age regress the body and they have several
That's just my
processes,
opinion,
and they
though.
put them back the same day, the same hour that they were
He's
taken
not.
in the same body after they lived 20 years and went back.
Shawnee, when they wheeled Epstein's body out on the gurney, someone took a photo of it and it wasn't his earlobe. It was not his earlobe. And they pointed it out.
So it's a mouthful, and it's when you explain to somebody that hears it for the first. I hate to be the first guy to explain it to somebody. I really do. I hate to be the first person to break that news to somebody because they look at you and they go, "No, what about?" And then their questions come. But really, I'm not the only one talking about it. There's a great deal of information about it available. 20 and back secret space program, 20-year tour, career return program. There's a lot of information about that stuff anybody can access, and I'm not the only one. I mean, there's been dozens of people that have been researched and came through credibly, like myself, that got researched by a professional researcher and turned up evidence. And there's been a lot, and then there's hundreds of people that haven't had that luxury of somebody proving part of their experience, having proof tangibly. And so there's hundreds of people like that. They just haven't had that luxury. That doesn't mean nothing happened to them.
Yeah.
It's just that they can't really speak about it. You know what I mean? On the same publicly.
Yeah, Cassie, her name was. I think he sort of unalived her as well.
So anyhow, that's kind of the recap. I was 10 years old. I got bumped into a program and lived on Earth for 7-8 years in black projects, working for privately funded black government projects, fringe government projects, and then sold off to the military and put into the space colonies, and then was on several different projects there. Like I worked for a couple of years and get retrained, and ended up on Ceres Colony and working for the bulk of my time, and then put back to being 10 years old again in 1982. And then got my memories back in 2015. Was that when we did that episode? Was it like I went public in September of 16.
No, Shawnee, it wasn't Epstein. That's my point. It wasn't him.
First.
Think about it though. So they've gone out and unalived someone to pull off a con like that.
Oh, no. Because I started the podcast January of 2017, and we were at episode 91 when I interviewed you. So you were at least new to
18.
me.
I think it was like, okay, so yeah, and it's funny. It's like I said, it's a small. There's a lot of people that study ufology, and it's like a small percentage of them really.
Shawnee, I bet he's shaking now.
I like to think it's a big percent have knowledge.
See how your name gives away your character? I bet he's shaking in his boots now.
So the 20 and back program.
Well, I would say that I think coming across your story was probably my most extensive introduction to the topic. I had heard other people talk about the idea of it, things like that, but I had never talked to somebody up to that point that was saying that this is what they've been through. And I remember doing that interview, and I felt like a fish out of water. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to ask here. like I'm interested in the story, and like I'm listening to your stuff, and I'm just like, this is so like. Have you ever been in a situation where you're taking so much information in that you have a hard time like organizing it in your head?
Yes.
Right, you actually need to sleep on it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You need to hear it and wait a couple days and then hear it again and sleep on it. That really, when you hear something that really changes everything, you know, something that you know what I'm saying, like like legitimately changes your what reality is for you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like you have we have a reality. We live on the earth with like no ETs come here and our government's good, great people and they care about us and stuff. We have all these
Never lied to
images.
us.
Yeah, we have that provided for us. And then when you hear somebody that comes along and goes, no, we don't, no. And then this is else happened. And then 5 other people raise their hand and go, yeah, it happened to me too. And you know what I'm saying? When you can come with that, like a bunch of whistleblower comes along and tells you, like, you know, it's radical to think about, what was it, Snowden, the whistleblower, saying that all the cell phones are always on, always listening. You know, that was like hard to swallow. And I had to sleep on that for a minute.
Diane, I hope Jamie Foxx did do that because I like Jamie Foxx and he doesn't want to get involved in Diddy stuff. Good on him. So I hope it's true that he went and sued the FBI. I hope that's true.
But it's my information and other people that been in the secret space program, their information is kind of the same thing. Like if you never heard about it, you go, whoa, they are doing what? You know, like when you really look into the info, and then a lot of the, you know, it wasn't a great time for me, and there really is a massive abuse of power, and they, in the name of advancing the technology for the species, that's the name that they do it, but they use slave labor and they treat people. There's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of crime that goes in, that is day-to-day life up there that we would consider high crimes. And then I say it loud and proud, and I'll tell anybody that all ET abductions, all ET contacts are felonies. It's a felony. They show up in your room. They show up in your bedroom, bro. And when you're a kid, so our kids, you know, there are thousands and thousands of kids that are.
That's a good point. These alien abductions are felonies. That's a good point.
That come forward saying they had ET contacts. And so that's also a high crime. You have to get permission. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Real ET, that when we really have a say or any kind of compassion from extraterrestrial contact, or even the secret government programs, there's people that come in and they would knock on the front door. You get what I'm saying? Like an ET that would fly up on somebody's car and then they disappear and come back all of a sudden. What happened? We don't know. Then if it was legitimate in our best interests, they would knock on the front door.
Yeah.
Right. And say, would you come with us, please? We'd like you to help us. And you would go, okay. But they don't do that. People are abducted. It's a huge crime, and it's across the board. And thousands of people have contacted me since I've been public. Thousands that said they remember bits and pieces of the same thing that I say.
I'm so glad that that's the case. I think that there's a lot of people out there. So say somebody comes across my show that's been in your shoes. They may not feel comfortable talking to me, somebody who's never been through it, that talks to other people. And I'm fine talking to people, but it may not for them be, you know, how do I communicate this to somebody who's never really even been through it? They go across the street and they're like, here's somebody that I can talk to. And I do the same thing, man. Like it's kidnapping. I mean, how else can you? I mean, I didn't ask to be taken.
It's one of our, especially when you're talking about, you know what I mean? It's one of our culture has a set, you know what I'm saying? And to be fair, ET cultures, so from my time that I remember, ET cultures have a wide variety of morals that are much different than ours, that are just as normal to them as we think that are, you know what I'm saying? Like their moral value. There are many moral things that people really, so, I mean, let's face it, what do you think? Are we close to, you think disclosure is near?
No. I personally lean towards no. I don't think that the government doing, like, listen, if the government's doing these things, do I think that they're going to tell me they're doing these things? No, I don't.
I think that there was been a big fight over disclosure, you know, in the government, like, or whoever, the space program, whoever, I don't know who, but you could tell that there was a fight that bubbled up to the surface. And disclosure is the main issue, because that's the big, you know, elephant in the room, that we're at a level of we're at a level of technology where pretty soon somebody will be able to roll out some guys will get together and they can build. People have CNCs and laser cutters and computers. We have a lot of things that we never had, not even 10 years ago, in our garage. And guys will be able to build something that can discover life out there and prove it without a shadow of doubt out of a garage. So now we're getting to that level of technology to where it's likely that they can't keep it hidden. Somebody will have a wide scale proof of life out there. So they have to disclose. They have to or kill us off. And, or do something, you know what I'm saying? Like we're getting to the point where they can't keep it a secret any longer. They have to do something graphic.
How possible could that be, though, as a solution to kill everybody off like yourself? I mean, is that something that you think is feasible?
Well, I mean, it depends on who's in charge of us. It depends on the job that the people that are really running things, the corporate elite, the corporations, whoever's at the top of the corporation is really running the world. And so it depends on how good a job those people do at defending us, because it's not up to us. We don't have the technology to even interfere with. That's the other thing, is a lot of people think that we're advanced in certain ways, that but the actual us driving around in our Chevy and our gas powered stuff, looking at television, cable and internet at whatever our internet is at, like half a gig a sec, whatever it gets to, it's lame. And so against species that can fly through mountains and time travel and read your mind and make people paralyzed when they walk in the room, we're talking about this level of tech. So it's not really up to us. It's not a question. If they wanted to kill us, they could. So somebody
that paralysis in your sleep, the more you try and break out of the bubble, it's like an energy around you. And the more you try and fight to get out of that energy bubble, the more it's used against you. It's so crazy.
In charge of our elite, whoever's in charge needs to do a job of defending us and by proxy themselves defending themselves and by proxy us. That's what we got in that plan. Or disclosure is more favorable, really. So we're not the first planet that got to where we are and then needed that they made contact and let everybody know that there's a galactic community or an intergalactic community. So we're not the first time this has happened. So they know exactly what's going to happen. Like when they released the internet technology on the public, they knew exactly what was going to happen, because they knew what happened on other planets when it happened. You get what I mean? So they knew what to expect of society back then, because the elite are in touch with this level of tech and reach of information.
So if that's the case, and like you said, I mean, we're not the first planet to go through this. What do you think then would be holding back the disclosure from happening? I mean, do you think it's literally the powers that are in charge right now trying to hold on to control still, and they're not ready to join that community? They just want to hold on to their little. It's like a kid on a playground that has his favorite swing. He's like, nope, it's mine. Nobody else can use it. Is it that, or is there something more at play that I'm not thinking of?
Well, high five you, man. That's the best question ever. So, well, there's a couple obvious ones. Number one, like I said, they've committed crimes. So in order to bring people up and train them and make them available to trade let's just take the 20-year tour, the career return program. So it's perfectly legal in the United States to enslave somebody if they've been convicted of a crime. So if you were going to take somebody right out of their jail cell, which you probably have they could privately own jail that they probably already have legal authority to go into, and enslave that person, if you went to someone's jail cell in the United States and kidnap them and put them in a career return program and made them slave labor, and then put them back in their jail cell 30 minutes later and use that technology, it turns out it's perfectly legal. The 13th Amendment that freed the slaves said, no, there'll be no slavery unless convicted of a crime. Wow. They don't say what level of crime or anything. So it's perfectly legal to take and then all of a sudden the United States has the largest prison population in the world.
How did I
so that's all.
How did I miss, like this is I'm somebody who I love the Constitution. And so like how did I freaking miss this thought process? I've never had this thought process go across my mind.
Well, it's
About being felonies is neither have I. Very interesting.
I lived through it, so I lived through slave labor up there, and that's why I have a second look. I went, wow, you don't say. I thought, what is the law for slavery now? And I went and read it. I went, wow. So what a coincidence that we have the largest prison population by far in the world. And there are other countries that face it behave worse than typical American. But that would get. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying it's legal if they were going to do that. So there's that. There is. And when you enslave somebody up there, the mind control they use, the soldiers get a with the grain mind control to make them more effective and more totally obedient, so that, or you get what I'm saying, like totally reliable on command. They can command them, and they instill other things. We're talking about very advanced industrial grade hypnosis, very advanced. And so that's how they do. And then with the grain, it makes the soldiers more confident and they fight better. But for the slaves, they use trauma-based mind control. And so to make them afraid so that you don't try to escape or try to give anybody any lip. So they take away your self-esteem and put you through great deal of trauma-based mind control. So that's when we look at that, and if we disclose and they look at these programs, that involves sexual abuse, that involves being tortured, that involves many bad things. We'll look at that and go, what? This is against the law. You guys need to go to jail. So to get back, sorry, long story, but to get back to your question of why they don't want to disclose, is because heads must roll after a disclosure of what these programs, what the day at the office has been for these guys that have had access to these programs. Heads were going to have to roll. They broke a lot of laws, and they were not necessarily.
Wow, good point.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, they were in space, so they have their own laws. How's that going to work when we find out there's a moon colony?
Yeah.
Can they not, is it maritime? Is it like international waters or something? Like, what is the law? And actually the Artemis Accords recently addressed that. So it's one of those coincidences that keep popping up in my testimony. But for the whole subject matter is that the Artemis Accords really address slave labor in space. Corporate slave labor in space is also, what is it? It was slavery. They made it legal in space, or like corporates had their own kind of law where they could, in fact, like, I don't know if it was worded slavery, but there was a way that they could really abuse people and it'd be legal because it would not be on the earth. And the Artemis Accords, there's a lot of fine print about labor in space. That's where they basically drew up the laws about it. So we'll see how that pans out. This the Space Force and all that. That's all playing into it. The other things I was told pre-disclosure that was holding us back from disclosure is that,
Shawnee, we're the trolling twins.
Our energy systems are so far behind because we've been kept into the fuel system that for an intergalactic community to integrate with us, they don't even touch us until we have our energy consumption.
Diane, we know who public enemy number one is. Obviously, Trump.
Energy infrastructure at a certain level of technology that we just can't do overnight. And they're like, once we do that, then we'll get our disclosure. Like, that could be literally the whole reason we're not disclosing, is because we don't have the infrastructure to accommodate our guests to come down and plug in their UFO to get more power or whatever. I'm being metaphorically there, but what I'm saying.
Yeah, but do you think that that is a big push as to why certain things are happening today politically, at least in the United States, that doesn't seem to make sense as far as pushing agendas that is actually hurting us?
Yeah, I think we just spent like $3 trillion on some new power grids. Or there was the $1 trillion bill of the power grid in Texas and South America, and then another one over power grids, and then they're getting rid of gas.
Yeah.
And machines.
I mean,
but it's all about the power consumption. Exactly. Well, that's what I mean. That's a lovely coincidence that's really, really is hopeful for me, that they're not going to kill us, that they're going to disclose, because they're building this, they're upgrading our power. They're heading in that direction. If they were going to, if it was a requirement for our power grid to be at a certain level of tech, and we were going to head in.
Shawnee, can you post a link to the mob you troll at? Because I'll join you and we will tag team them.
That direction to make it so. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're the money. We're watching the money head in that direction right now. Follow the money. Well, the money just went trillions of dollars, just went totally into power infrastructure for not only the United States, but like quite quite a wide area. I think other places in the world to have their power grids upgraded as well. So it's a global effort, and so that's a very positive.
Okay, let's talk about a sponsor of today's show, a new sponsor. Friends, we talk about security on this show. We talk about home security, food security.
We know how to shop, mate.
Cadbury frozen treats. Guaranteed not to last.
My name is a lawyer.
I'm sure she would.
But yeah, there's a lot of talk about the power grid and how weak the power grid is right now. And then we have some bizarre decisions made that you sit back and you look at. And I understand people have their opinions when it comes to like energy and fossil fuels and all that stuff. Throw that out the window. Just throw it out the window for your opinions and how you feel about things. The way it's been done is almost like they're trying to deplete us of fossil fuels in our reserves and things like that, almost as if to put us in a position where we have to do something else. It seems like that's kind of what's been happening with decision making, canceling the Keystone Pipeline and then deciding to tap into the reserves, which will only last like 2 days. Like,
Guilty as charged. Me too. Diane, you see what I paid you? Yeah.
what is the point of that? It doesn't make any logical sense unless they're trying to implement a whole new system by getting rid of the old system. Like there's just nothing left.
Maybe along those lines, but the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement is something that I've followed a lot, and it's like, I know we're talking about politics now, but what is something that happened that I think very few people understand the mechanism of the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement and what it really is to what it really means to people in America. And that's basically why our shelves are bare and where everything's going and why the prices of everything's skyrocketing, because the first few rounds of money that they passed with the COVID relief, right as soon as, Biden took office, they okayed the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement, which Obama had left off on, and Trump immediately canceled his first day in office. They came on, Biden gave it a green light, and they were waiting. They've been waiting for those last 4 years. They were ready. So what that basically does is it says that we are subsidizing all of the countries around the Pacific Rim, like Malaysia and Vietnam, and there's a bunch in there, and China, that we are subsidizing our produce, like our lumber and produce. We're subsidizing our products to go there. So even though it's more expensive to manufacture here because we're at our certain level and it's cheaper there, they can't afford it, and we pay the difference. So if they can only afford a $5 sheet of lumber and it costs $10 in America, we sell it to them, we give it to them, and they pay $5, and America, out of the relief money, pays the other $5 that's where all our stuff is going. And it's going to be years of that because they are upgrading, they're building. It's NAFTA. If NAFTA was a firecracker, this is a nuclear bomb because of the same exact thing of outsourcing. And so like most of the countries are getting like a 40% pop in their 40 or 50% pop in their local economy because of the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement. The United States over the next 20 years is only supposed to get 5% economical growth out of the trans. You know what I mean? Like that's anyhow. Well, I'm getting sidetracked. It's not UFOs, is it? But it's the reason. It's where we're at right now. We're building up the third world.
It all relates.
Yes.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. I mean, it's not political. It's taking what's happening in our world today, which unfortunately you can't sneeze without making it political these days. So we're just talking about what's literally happening in today's world and how that attributes to what we're talking about here with your own personal experience. So I don't view it as getting political whatsoever. Like I don't care what people think. I don't care who people vote for. Go do what you want to do with your life. I don't freaking care.
Like so when I got my memories back, so I'll go back to
Hey,
my story.
Vaz,
So
good
I
to
got my
see you,
memories
mate.
back in 2015, and I was left wondering what the hell was happening to me. I really
Man, it's done it
wanted
again.
some other reason to kind of cut me free of it. Like I kept trying to find a reason for it to be some other thing that was other than me remembering actual things. You get what I mean? Like maybe it was, maybe if I go here and prove it wrong, if I go here, I remember that this place was here and I remember the car was blue. And if I can go this place and find that it's there and it's not, the car is not blue and the place is different, then I can prove it wrong. I can move on. I can quit worrying about it because it was a dream or something. And then what happens is I go there and the car is blue and exactly how it is. So, and it's over and over and over again. It keeps happening. So because of that, I started studying the things I remember to research it. And I think that's why I've got a weird look on how our local current events. I have a kind of a weird perspective because of my own, one like the Constitution. Like I read the Constitution from that angle because I remembered that slavery was up there, and if it was, that was the same kind of thing. Religion was the other thing. The other thing I really researched that was disappointing to pan out was the ritual human sacrifice. That was a global culture. It was global. Everybody in the globe did it. I didn't know that, but I was researching the history, like why these people do that, why the elite are doing that, and there's quite a bit of history there. It was kind of disappointing to see what it is, what it was, and how it is.
Right. Yeah, and that it's a dark history that man has from pretty much any angle you want to take it. If you look back in the history of your country or human society in general, it's dark. There's a lot of people who were in charge of things, who made bad decisions, did bad things, and that's from your history books to your biblical books to everything in between. History's filled with regrets, right? So that's the way I look at it. Now, let me ask you a question here. We were talking about, or you were mentioning about some of your experiences, and I was making rapid fire notes, and I want to start off with this one part here. Did you suggest that not only are ETs abducting people, but actual people are coming into people's homes and abducting them in the middle of the night, kind of thing?
Oh yeah, where black programs have advanced alien technology. Many black programs, and I'm talking about elite special forces. They have access to anti-grav craft. They have access to sleep technology. They have access to, they can see right through the house. They can, they have access to the same technology that ETs use to abduct people. In my abduction experience, they followed up. The military followed up, or excuse me, that's I can't say military, not humans followed up. I was abducted again by humans a few weeks after my initial abduction by ETs. I was taken by the, I call it the Cabal programs. The Orion Group programs that was dealing with probably the CIA and local or American elite billionaire people that probably had access to CIA programs. I was taken by them and then sold into the space colonies, into those militaries, and then traded from one to another a couple times. And but definitely after that, I came back. A human group got me, and they had tech to remotely make me get up out of bed and sleepwalk right into their van out in my driveway.
Wow.
So they had that technology, and so if they have that, then they run the gamut. And the other thing is this is
we get fined if we don't vote, Diane. It's compulsory to vote here.
I don't know why.
Vote.
After I came public, I think the emails were right before my first interview. I believe I was taken and interrogated by like the Air Force secret space program, like on that level, and they took me and interrogated me and put me right back it was the same technology. They time dilated me, so they took me and they interrogated me for like 18 hours, and they put me back, and I woke up the next morning like, what the hell just happened?
Why?
And it was only the nighttime had passed, so I got sleep and everything.
What's the point of that? I mean, are they aware that you remember more? Like, obviously now, but I mean, leading up to that, do you think they had some ability to understand some people are waking up with the memories, or what?
Good
I think
questions.
the researchers that I was dealing with at the time had their emails under surveillance, and so they came and got me to question me, and they asked me the same story over and over. I was like, I remember being kind of zonked out of it, like, you know, they gave me something, and I was like zonked, but I remember it was the same thing over and over again, and I was being super cooperative, and it was like two guys doing the good cop, bad cop thing, where one of them would be cool once in a while, the other one was like aggressive. And they kept asking me the same questions over and over and over again, you know, and I was like, dude, I'm telling you the same thing. And it was like, seriously, like 18 hours straight of it. And then they put me back.
So
at Viking, we've thought of everything, so you don't have to. Simply unpack once and we'll take care of the rest.
Viking's Fly Crew sale is on now. For a limited time, enjoy free return flights to Europe. Book now at Viking.com or see your Viking travel agent.
Every Toyota forklift is driven by innovation, with technology that makes your workplace safer.
They're modern looking now, forklifts, look at that.
We rejoin the action on the final hole. A well-struck tee shot from Anna is required. Let's see.
So, if they have technology to make you sleepwalk out of your house into the van, and that's how the abduction can happen, I'm sure you've heard of like voice to skull technology. What are your thoughts on that as far as Isaac Cappy, before he killed himself, he was talking about how he was hearing voices in his head, and everybody around him was saying that he's losing it, he's crazy, he's talking about all these elite pedophiles, and now he's hearing voices. But then he's in the car, I think in Arizona, with a friend, and his friend was driving, and they both were hearing voices in their head at the same time. So at that point, she was like, "Oh, he's not crazy," and there's some kind of technology going on. Have you ever heard of such things?
Oh yeah, it's very real. It's mechanical. We called it mechanical telepathy on Ceres Colony. It's a very real thing, and you know, I've talked to people that have said they've had it, but I've followed up with them. Like people have talked to me and said that, you know, they're a targeted person and they get the voices and stuff. I'm like, follow up with them, and they usually don't want to keep talking about it. So, but I believe it's very real. It's a very real technology for sure. Something, and the vice versa. They can listen to what you're thinking too. You know, they can, which is right, like the ultimate paranoid conspiracy thing to say publicly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To generate people that have paranoid behavior. But I'm saying that they have that's the ability as well. So I don't know what it would entail, or what, you know, like what kind of tech they would do, but that's definitely something that's in the realm of possibility. It existed in the secret space colonies when I was up there.
So I don't think it's too hard to fathom when you break it down into terms that we are more familiar with. So we know there's algorithms that are real, and we know that our phones have predictive qualities to them, where, you know, it learns our habits, and all of a sudden things that we need, or we think we need, or we want, all of a sudden starts popping up on our phone without us even searching for it. It's like, oh, it's that time, you know, it just knew. And so if they have technology that can just predict your behaviors to the point that they know what you're thinking, or know what you are going to think at a certain point in the day, of course they have technology that could actually read your minds. I mean,
Diane, he did troll Kamala Harris. He brought that up in McDonald's. I think Trump's really funny.
You look at what Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink and the technology he's working on there. I mean, it's not a stretch whatsoever. And if they're doing that publicly now, just imagine what they have privately. And I've said this before on the show. When I was driving truck, I was doing a delivery to a guy who owned a casket place. He sold caskets. And he said to me that, and he didn't know who I was. We just got in this conversation. I guess I'm good at pulling this kind of stuff out of people. But we were talking about his time in the military. And he said back in the 60s, he was an engineer in the military. And he said the technology that we have today, he was working on back then, or they had back then. And so there's a very big gap between what we have access to and what they have access to. And your story just kind of backs that whole thing up.
Right. Well, thanks. Yes.
Hey, Carly, good to see you.
Your cell phone does way more than you can even imagine. The amount of mind control, the level of technology behind that.
Oh,
so
man.
there are,
Does that all the time.
that there are not only when you look at your cell phone, you say it's like the NSA is listening, and they can word search all your stuff it's listening to, but there are other programs that are above the NSA that they're unaware of that have access to the same data and can actually manipulate it. And when you talk about big tech, it's quite obvious. Nobody can argue that big tech is all working together. It's basically one entity, that all of the website, all of the media is basically one entity. They're all on the same page with agendas that are fly in the face of what a lot of people nowadays are going, huh? And they're all on the same page by pushing the agenda. So whatever it is, I don't want to talk myself off of the internet, but
or me.
It's obvious. You're right. It's obvious that it's one or two. They're very close and they're all on the same page. Somehow they shouldn't be. We believe they shouldn't be. So, but there are levels above them that are actually ET. Well, so you could not only get one or two groups of ETs, you could get 100 of different ETs with all different agendas that are accessing that information. They have the ability to come down and snoop on that tech and access all that info. So, and then the ones that actually are working with big tech openly can input things. So with the mechanism to listen to everything, big tech also has a mechanism to program what you see next. And so that's a huge thing that's intake. It's really impacting our kids. When you look at the younger generation, they're really affected by their social. We didn't have it, right? I don't know how old you look at a young guy.
36. So it came out when I was Facebook came.
Phil, people can't put in the words what they see in heaven. They can't put it in the words.
About when I was in college, but I didn't get it till I was married. So
when did you get?
I'm good, thanks, Vas. Mum got out of hospital last night, so everything's fine here.
Actually, I did get my first smartphone.
That's why I didn't stream yesterday. I was at the hospital.
Like 2006 or 5. It was the Motorola Q, which was it had internet. But it was so slow and crappy. It wasn't a touchscreen or anything like that.
Yeah, it was cheesy back then. So you're already an adult, though. So when the phone that's in your pocket today, you're already an adult. Your opinion, your morals are made up. Your willpower is made up. Your opinions are made up. Already firmly entrenched in your psyche. The kids nowadays, all of their opinions, all that stuff is fed to them by that fucking phone. Excuse my language, but you can't stop the phone from children. I have raised my daughters. I regret giving them internet access at a young age. I wish I would have waited until they were 15 or 16, even though that was probably not possible. It was probably not possible. They wanted it so bad. All their friends had it and everything, but it changed them. I watched their personalities, you know what I'm saying, be influenced by the internet. You can see it. And, if you're close with your kids, I mean, anybody can see it, but it really changed them and continues to this day. It influences them. And these are people, your kids,
In Australia, they're trying to bring in laws that you got to be over 16 to get a social media account. You're actually bringing that into a law. And I don't disagree with that, to be honest.
Better than anybody, and me too. So I'm thinking, no, it hasn't influenced me at all. I'm still the same guy, but we have a better chance because we grew up without it. But to see kids that's been the gospel to them the whole time. You know what I'm saying? Like it's been their fault. So when something changes in the media, they change. And now, we have a different kind of a guide. We kind of have like I said, we have a basis without the influence of big tech and media. So we're all different.
We have a foundation that was laid in place before the internet was put on top of that foundation. Whereas the kids today, their foundation it is the internet. I mean,
is the internet.
That's their root makeup, and so all the information they get, who they are, what they're going to do, all comes from the internet. And if the internet changes something and moves a different direction, so do the kids. That's it. I mean, they navigate. Whereas I think even our generations and stuff are changing too, because I mean, how many times like I'm 36, and I can't tell you how many times I see people in their 50s, 60s, 60 year old and they're acting like they're in their 20s. The way they're letting their decisions, how they're making their decisions. I mean, at some point you gotta start saying, okay, we gotta stop making decisions based off our emotions. And it seems like there's a regression here, and I feel like it's because technology. People are so stuck in their phones and stuff that it does control you. It brainwashes you. It gets you. It seeps into your consciousness where you start acting the way they want you to act, not the way you probably should be acting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of influence to worry about. So we'll see. Our kids are the first generation that are growing up in it. We'll see what their kids are like, what they've learned from it when they raise their next generation of people that are, you know, it's 100% of influence like that. So we'll see.
How do you? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I think overall it's more positive than negative. I think that I'd rather see a mankind that's in touch with each other, because even if it's turbulent, even if times are, you know, even if it's a negative influence now, over time we'll adapt to the and we'll have the ability to, you know, I think it's a better thing that people have access to information and each other is the best info.
Yeah, coming from your perspective and what you've been through and what you've seen and stuff, I can see how you come to that conclusion, because you've been exposed to other civilizations and advanced technologies, and seeing what those advanced technologies have done for those civilizations. For somebody like me on my side of it, I'm just like, some of it I just want to throw back into the bottomless pit, you know?
Hey, JD, good to see you, mate.
There. But at the same time, I mean, like, I owe technology a huge debt of gratitude for just where I'm at in my own life. You know, if it wasn't for the technology that we have access to, the people wouldn't know who I am. I wouldn't have a show.
Yeah, nice over here too, mate.
Stuff. So I mean, it's like a catch-22 with me and stuff. It's like I hate it, but I also love it. You know, I need it, but I hate it. So I'm in that transition. You know, like it's that transition. And maybe you're right. The next generation won't be having the same struggles that I have right now with technology. They're just like, it is part of my foundation.
Yeah, we'll adapt. We'll adapt to it. I will say this about, so, you know, I don't think about it when we're just shooting the breeze like
it was
this.
Good fun, wasn't it, JD?
You remind me of my time in space and how I've seen it. I'll tell you this, that brought something to mind, was that everybody, all of even the government, even the military people on Ceres Colony and Mars Colony, everybody had advanced civilizations that we aspired to, that we were in awe of. There are civilizations out there, there are beings out there that have such a command of their environment and technology. They have technology that's so far advanced of what they had that we know that there is virtual paradises of existence for beings, and they have their own problems. They did not want to interact with us most of the time, but they did from time to time. But we were very aware that there were very advanced beings that not only had higher technology, but were mentally much more advanced than we are.
Okay, it's time for our last sponsor today, which is HelloFresh. And say it.
They classified the Ceres Colony Corporation, the Deutsch that were in charge there from World War II, you know, Europe. Deutsch, they were Germans, basically, the bad guys.
Yeah, they're a good band, aren't they, JD? That's one of the better songs, that Father's Day song.
They classified life forms by the amount of words they could speak.
Wow.
And so we're at like 100, 200,000 or something. And so that's human. And then they had like a meta, the next, I forget the ultra human, uber human, meta human. Anyhow, after you got up, there was something like that.
Like Facebook's meta?
No, like 3 tiers above the next one.
The reason why I say that it's like tongue in cheek, because I was going to ask you, is Mark Zuckerberg an alien? Because he looks like he could be one of those.
He actually said he's not human. Zuckerman,
big tech alien guy.
You know what I want to say. You know what I want to say. So I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to say anything.
There's some good spiritual music too, wasn't there, Shawnee?
Something hot water talking about Zuck.
Yeah.
But to me, it looks like his personality completely changed. I think he got I think he got taken and put it through his own trauma-based mind control. I can see it. There's times when you see a 1,000-yard stare, he looks like a school shooter. And I hate using those strong words. But there's times he has that 1,000-yard stare, looks like he's not even home in there. And so he would be somebody, he's very powerful, a government player who has access to mind control technology, which is not new. They've been doing the Manchurian Candidate for a long time. I got to point fingers, but it's obvious. And that's somebody that you would want to take in mind fracture, and then mind control them. All of the corporate guys could be like that, and that's what I smell when I see Mark Zuckerberg and talking publicly. It's like there's nobody home in there. No, so he wasn't like that when Facebook took off. He was very bright and He
does have soulless eyes, Zuckerberg.
What's the word?
Charismatic.
He was a charismatic and colorful person, and he turned into a great person. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that's what mind control does. That's what trauma-based mind control does to somebody. So that's my own personal observation, right? I'm not going on the record here, but I'm saying that's my personal opinion. That's what it looks like. But I don't know more. I don't know him, and I don't follow any of his interviews or anything like that. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, me neither and stuff. But when you say such things, it does have, a very much Kanye West type vibe, where Kanye West, you see him staring off into space, and he just seems very distant. His character has changed immensely over the years, to the point that people say he's crazy, and all this stuff. And I mean, I'm not a big fan of the guy. I think there's a lot of shady stuff that goes on within these industries, the music industry, Hollywood, obviously, the things that you've been through and have seen. But okay,
it's 2 years old, so Diddy hadn't happened yet.
It does seem like they're two different people, and what has changed? Could it be that it's simply the pressure of running these kind of organizations just sucks the life out of you? Maybe.
Good question.
But given what we've been talking about, and how you've mentioned about the higher you go into these organizations and stuff, that there's actual interaction where there's ET working within these organizations and making decisions. It's also when you're thinking along those lines, it's really not that hard to make that connection.
Yeah, there is a level of society in the world, and these are people that are very elite people, and it could Hollywood definitely, but as Hollywood don't get me started on them, but there's a level of people that have access to space, to intergalactic programs. I call them programs, but I'm saying that culture, to the intergalactic cultures, people have access to it. And so they're doing stuff on Earth with that kind of influence. So they're way ahead. And the mind control, the trauma-based mind control, I'm not going out far on a limb.
Sean, you're probably right. He's got all the symptoms of bipolar. When I got locked up in the psych wards, they diagnosed me with manic bipolar.
Plenty of evidence.
It wasn't that at all.
Research it. It's one of those things that people go, yeah, I don't think so, but it's like, they've been at it for a long time, a very, very long time. They're very good at it.
The only reason why somebody would say, yeah, I don't think so, is because you didn't. I don't think you looked into it. Because if you actually looked into it and you actually read documents from the government spelling it out for you, they admit they've done this. When you have the president of the United States apologizing for MK Ultra programming, you can't say, yeah, I don't think so. Right. At some point you're like, okay, I guess you're right. Yeah,
we're all under mind control. So think about this. Sure. Right, you're younger than me, but when you were young, there was still not the violence. Remember, on cable TV, it was like, or even on television, they all had more sexuality.
Yeah.
And now it's all violence. Like literally, I can turn on my TV and in 30 seconds flip through channels and watch somebody get murdered. Really, and in almost any form of television, any form of entertainment, it's like violent, because that's a form of mind control. That what that does is that in your subconscious doesn't know the difference if your violence you're watching is real or not. And over time, because of the you prolong that your subconscious, your self-talk, the result is that it makes people think that they're helpless. If you watch a lot of violence, you have an underlying feeling of helplessness. And you look at all these people, you know what I'm saying, that we're not talking, we're talking about more stuff, we're talking about politics again. But people feel helpless. Like people live at home with their parents much longer than they ever did. And it's a form of mind control. It's it keeps people docile and not feeling like they can manipulate, not feeling like they can manifest whatever they want. When you watch the violence on TV, that's the end result. Is it'll kill what your desire is to work for what you want because you feel hopeless.
BritBox has the largest streaming collection of British crime drama. New exclusives like The Hunt for Raoul Moat and Ridley, together with favourites like Line of Duty and Vera. BritBox. Watch with a free trial now.
There's nothing more important than our kids'
lads.
future. So we got real life insurance to protect us financially.
There's desensitization for sure. When you look at TV programs that were produced just late 90s, early 2000s, like if you go back and watch, like, oh yeah, that was such a good show, let me check that out, and all of a sudden you look at it, you're like, this is corny, this is whack, this doesn't even look real. Why did I ever think this was good? And it's because they've always been upping the bar to desensitize and get you closer to this idea of maybe what's really actually happening around us and stuff, so that when it starts really seeping into right in front of your face for real, it's not that surprising. I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, there's times when there's nights where I set out to watch TV or something, and I got a Prime and all Netflix and all that stuff, and quite a bit of entertainment available, and I can't find anything that's not violent.
Yeah.
Like I look for it, and it's very hard. It's very hard to find a good non-violent show.
Let me ask you about this.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about TV shows, the violence, and you said you had Netflix, right?
Tally, it's like they've got Asperger's syndrome. That's what Zuckerberg comes across like.
Yeah, for the kids.
Okay.
I watch it, but very rarely.
So I don't watch a ton of TV, but whenever I do, the only reason why I have cable is because I like watching the Sixers play basketball. That's the only reason why. Whenever I watch a TV show, it's usually on Netflix. And whenever I go to Netflix, the algorithm knows me. It knows what I like. I get a lot of satanic, witchcraft type shows that come to me on suggested TV shows, and I watch them because it's kind of what I do. I look into this kind of stuff, and I'm very interested in it. And I'm also interested in how Hollywood puts this kind of stuff into our psyche, and because it's actually going on and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on these kind of TV shows then? Do you think that it's more real than fake? Because I personally do. Some of the things that I see in these TV shows, I'm like, I know 95% of the people watching this right now think this is a well-written TV show, and it's all fantasy. And I'm sitting here thinking, I've talked to way too many people who've gone through this exact thing to know otherwise.
You can start to see a slipping, like you can start to see the beginning of them trying to normalize that society. We're talking about a society of satanic worshiping elites, carnivore people that are pedophiles. Exactly. And there really is. We're starting to see it, you know what I mean? Not so fast, because
sexualizing high schoolers in TV shows is very popular right now.
Absolutely. And the normalizing pedophilia.
Yes.
Normalizing. We're starting to see a little bit, not a great.
Okay, Elon Musk's nanny saw him do something when he was a kid, and she asked the mother, is he the Antichrist? And the mother said, no, he will bring in the mark of the beast.
Not a great push, but we're starting to see just little sprinkles here and there, like, well, is it really bad? You know, like they come out and there's people that are trying to say ways to deal with it. And what they're doing is they're getting it out there, and they're going to slowly try to normalize their own horrible behavior. And then, so we've already seen our society change in the last few years from what we thought it was to what it is now. And so when we see these kind of changes, where are people going to draw the line, or are people going to accept it? I would say that the diversity of life throughout the cosmos, if we're talking about a post-disclosure world, people are going to be appalled. If we disclosed right now and you could access the intergalactic internet and speak to ETs and chat rooms and look at their movies, watch their videos, if you could watch an ET TikTok, you would be appalled by some of them because their cultural and moral standards are different than ours. Because we've been programmed under a lot of our morals are just control mechanisms. But throughout the cosmos, different control mechanisms are necessary. And that was my understanding, was that many ET races behave in ways that we would consider horrible. I don't really have a ton of examples to give you, off the top of my head, but like some are more violent, some are more loose about possessions, so they'll just take your stuff and not feel bad about it. Some are sexually different that we would consider perverted, and so there has to be some kind of because our morals really, when you go into like a full-on whatever religion that the top religions in the world right now, if you fully follow them, the morals are very strict. And so an ET might be, like if we have racism now, think about a hyper form of speciesism that takes the form of racism because of moral standards that are incompatible. And that's going to happen, in a post-disclosure world. And so we're starting to see some of that. And I'm not trying to give the satanic, like you said, the Netflix, the satanically, I'm not trying to give them a pass and say that, we have to accept it for what it is, because clearly a child's right needs to be preserved. Like our right to have our door knocked on and participate in an ET interaction, not taken out of our bedroom and not taken as a child without the parent. You know what I'm saying? Like we have rights that need to be defended in the coming decades. We're going to have rights that are going to have to be well defined, that have not been respected by our elite and by ET races that are manipulating our elite. And so that's kind of a big deal. Like you said, I see the programming, like on your identity, like I see the programming trying to normalize things that we should not normalize.
Yeah, I did see that.
And I feel like a lot of things are going in a good direction. I think our next generation of kids, I watch my kids that are in their early.
Shawnee, he's just getting worse and worse, the Pope, isn't he? It's stunning how antichrist he's becoming.
20s and their late teens. They're very more, accepting, you know what I'm saying? Like not as closed-minded about cultural things as my generation was told to be. So, and I see it as a positive step. I see they're manipulated. They're totally like hook, line, and sinker being led around by the establishment. But I see a lot of the overall thinking of acceptance of things. They're far more acceptant than we were. When I'm going to be 50 in a couple months. So I was born in 72. So I grew up through the 80s and 90s. And so it was a different culture, man, back then. So we're seeing positive things, but they're careful. They're going to try to they're going to try to normalize things that shouldn't be as well. So it's kind of like a line, and time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a black person. I just found this out. I'm a black pill person. I didn't even know what a black pill was until recently. There's the red pill, and then there's the black pill, which is you're red pilled, but you're so red pilled that you feel like there's no hope. And that's what I tend to be very pessimistic. And so I'm sure you've probably gotten that vibe from me just talking to me and stuff. I'm just like,
not at all.
I'm just like, I see issues, and my mind automatically starts doing the domino effect of seeing, okay, if this is happening now, what's the next step they're going to do? Down, 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 down. And that's why I'm just like, I get kind of emotional at times where it's like, talk about charismatic. I get pretty loud sometimes, but
there's one big family, Phil. We love you, bro.
Anyways, I have the similar opinion as you. I think there are some good things and some bad things, but I definitely think that if they have any kind of inkling of manipulation on the future generation, I personally lean towards, ultimately, I think it's just
okay. We know there's no future generation.
It's going to be bad in the sense of individuality, because if the future generations are manipulated at all, it's not like these organizations or whoever they are is going to relinquish any of that. And so they're just going to continue doing it to the point where these future generations are manipulated into everything.
Okay, that's over.
I was told quite a few years ago, if you want to find the answers to what's going to happen,
if God had to make signs to wake up the church, I don't think we could get more of a sign. This is more than any generation that we have seen.
Yeah, it does.
Hey everybody, this is General Mike Flynn, and I'm joined today with a great friend, Pastor Steve Ciccolotti. And before we get into some discussions with Steve and to allow him to introduce himself and talk about some of the critical things that I know that he deals with on a daily basis and certainly has been thinking about for a long, long time. And I'll describe here in a second how our relationship developed, because I think it's important to understand that background, that really, from my perspective, why we believe the kinds of things that we believe. I was told quite a few years ago, if you want to find the answers to what's going to happen as an intelligence officer, go back to the only book that was ever written that actually tells the truth, right? It's all about the truth. And that would, of course, be the Bible. So,
yeah. So, I mean, the main thing is, let's not forget the main thing. Jesus is coming back. It's about Jesus, not about America, not even about Israel per se. It's about Jesus. He's coming back to rule and reign. But because we are so skeptical, we have so many Thomases, God is very gracious to say, well, here's some proof that's undeniable, because humans can't even predict the weather. They couldn't even tell where the hurricane's going to go over. They said we're, going to have to shut down shops and churches and things like that. And then over my area, actually, the hurricane was like nothing came. You can see the map; it was very clear. But anyway, it's very hard to tell the future. Otherwise, people would know, how to bet on every sport game and who's going to win every election. But we have intel here that this one is 2,000 years old. And what I'll show you about the war is 3,000 years old in Ezekiel. So let's start with this. Revelation 6, verse 1. Now I, the Apostle John, who was the last surviving apostle out of the 12, I watched when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures say, with a voice like thunder, come. And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and his rider had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he came out conquering and to conquer. So we've got a few different clues, and the Bible does it with clues, because what I learned is this: if you say something too exact, they say it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Somebody was they were bound to make it happen because you said who will attack who on what day.
Right.
So God does it in a clear way, but yet he symbolizes it so that it's not easy to know what it is until it's done. The moment it's done, you say, okay, what is this? Something that's white. So what is universally white around the world? What profession is white? You'll see the medical profession, the pharmaceutical industry, they will wear white. Even when the actors are not real doctors, they have to wear white to show that they're in the medical industry. So somebody is wearing white. The rider had a bow. The word bow in the original Greek is the word toxon, and we get in English the word toxic, intoxicated or toxic. The bow is a weapon system, so the bow means the bow, the arrow, and it's dipped in the toxon to deliver a poison through the skin. So the word is toxon, and then a crown was given to it. That word, if you read in the Latin Vulgate, or you read in Spanish, the word is corona. So somebody comes wearing white. He's given a toxon, a delivery system that pierces the skin.
It's hard to argue that, isn't it?
And gives poison into people. And then a crown, a corona was given to him. What is he going to do with this? He's going to go out conquering and to conquer. That's the first seal. Then you get the second seal. When he opened the second seal, I heard a second living creature say, come. And out came another horse, bright red.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, Shawnee, he said other religions are just different languages to get back to God. Yeah, it's such blasphemy.
Let me, put you on this a little bit. So you described a white, a black, a red, a green horse, right? And interpretations of those revelations that each of those horses, portray. So why horses? What's the symbolic nature of the horse? I mean, we just saw in the Olympics. We just saw the Olympic opening ceremony. They usually look like the horse of
the
death.
Devil knows. The devil knows. The devil is a counterfeiter. And so why the horse? Number one, for us, we're separated from the horse now, but for historically, the horse is the weapon of war. It's the carrier of the soldier. So number one, it's a war. Number two, a horse is a domesticated animal that is controlled by humans. So all of these events will be warlike, it will be anti-human, and it will be engineered by humans. Somebody is going to be steering it. So even though the white horse looks like it's just an accident, a virus escape, what the Bible is saying is he picked a horse, not a panda, not a lion, not something else. He picked a horse because a horse has a rider that steers it, and the horse allows that. So each of these will be human-engineered pandemic, human-engineered war.
Steve, looking at it from the biblical perspective, what I wanted to do in this last segment is let him just talk a little bit here about where does he think, given what he's described, where does he think we're heading as a world and certainly as a nation?
Great question.
Here in the United States of America.
How old's this?
Well,
It's only 5 days ago.
We'll put it in big perspective. First of all, how could we, our two individuals, General Flynn and Pastor Steve, be sitting here together when a year ago I was living in Australia and the Lord just said, come to be part of the Great Awakening here. And then the tour that you run is called the Reawaken America Tour. So I think what we have to keep in mind is God is watching over our lives. He's putting the right people together at the right time, but we have to listen to him. And it's more critical than ever that we're listening to his voice. One of the biggest problems from my perspective is President Trump has had very untrustworthy people around him. And that's why I think we are in the situation that we're in. And so we need to pray for him, and we need to pray that the right voices are around you. So that's true, like from a national level, that's true even from a family level. That third voice, that wrong voice is the problem. We got to get a sharp, clear signal from the Lord. And the way we do that is we go back to the Bible. We need people who are just grounded in the word, not in opinion. And you asked a very good question, like, couldn't somebody just look at the white horse and call it something else? Well, during the break, I'm reminded, you know what? I've actually heard other things, but the reason that they're wrong is because the seals were not open. That's why it's actually called a seal. It means even if you're learned, even if you study a lot, you're not going to know what it is until it's revealed. Like, you're not going to know what a corona is. You can say it could be a European crown, you could guess it could be some other nation, but it just has no meaning. There's no way you would know that there's a virus called COVID-19 that would affect the whole world until COVID-19 comes and affects the whole world. That's why it's sealed. But yes, you could say the white horse. Somebody a long time ago, I heard pastors say, oh, that's Jesus coming. But why would he come with a bow and a crown and he goes out conquering? He's already conquered death. What else is there for him to conquer? He's conquered it all.
Well said.
He conquered sin and death. Then somebody else said, yeah, the white horse could be the Antichrist. But the problem with that is the timeline. Timeline is very important.
He's in America, Talia.
It's like you get the advice.
Not sure where, but he's in America.
Buy a share or a stock, but you buy it at the wrong time. It can ruin you. So Revelation 6 is way before Revelation 13, which is when the Antichrist is revealed. So it's important to just keep track of what's going on. God is chronological. He's revealing it chronologically. So what's coming next is definitely there's going to be a war. We're on the winning side. Iran's not going to win over this, but there's going to be an Islamic alliance that will come out of this.
Yep.
Out of that, it will take us to many chapters further into Revelation, which will take us to Ezekiel 38. Ezekiel 38, if you're in the military and you want intelligence from another dimension, you need to study Ezekiel 38 and 39 very clearly. So we're heading to the war. It's not the end. Those who think, I hear right now, the way they're interpreting this is, Russia's going to invade Israel. Russia is not going to invade Israel. I think you and I have some similar beliefs about this, that this is just made up American theology because the seals were not broken and because for many years, Russia is always depicted in Hollywood as the enemy. But consider the fact that Russia is more pro-Christian than America is right now. They don't have Hollywood pumping out transgender and the breakdown of families daily. They don't have that. They're actually protecting the family. They're more anti-Islam than America is right now. And have fought many, many wars with their smaller states of the former Soviet Union, and they were Muslim. So they're very well aware of this issue. So it's not at all in the Bible that Russia is going to invade Israel. That's something that needs to be corrected. Go back to the Bible. So when we go to Ezekiel 38 and the remaining time that we have, there's a lot of words and a lot of old words that needs to be interpreted. But we'll try to make some sense of it because this is the big one. And it comes after Ezekiel 37, which is the rebirth of Israel. So we know the timeline. The rebirth has to happen before. That's already happened. Then the capture of Jerusalem, that's happened. And then Donald Trump recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel was one of those main events that fulfilled Ezekiel 37. So 37 is done. We're now into 38. The word of the Lord came to me, that's Ezekiel. Son of man, set your face toward Gog. This is a mystery. People are debating who's Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him and say, thus says the Lord, behold, I am against you, O God, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn you about and put hooks into your jaw and bring you out, and all your army, horses, horsemen, all of them. So it's connected
There's
to
the
the
horses
horses.
again.
There it is. It's connected, those two. All of them clothed in full armor, a great host means an army, a great army, all of them with buckler and shield, wielding swords. Now here are the nations. Persia is modern Iran. Cush and Put are with them. Cush is the old name for Sudan and Ethiopia. Today, Sudan is the Islamic country that's aligned with all of those other nations. Put is Libya. They're with them. So you got Iran, you got Sudan, you got Libya, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his cohorts, Beth Togarmah with all from the uttermost parts of the north. So it even tells you, if you don't know which direction this is north. All right, Iran is north, Syria is north, Turkey is north. After many days, you will be mustered. Right, in the latter years, you will go against the land that is restored from war, the land whose people were gathered from many peoples. Okay, what land, what country is gathered from many people? America is, Israel is.
Australia is.
This city got me on my flat. I bounce back every time it's a reflex. No mills in the shot, but I eat that. She on the way, we ain't even get a speed wet. He fell away on his beat, giving blood bang, baby. Don't worry, it's a shit bang, baby.
Welcome to the mountain of entertainment, Paramount Plus. We're here to guide you to big new sea.
We're going to have to skip a few of these. They're going to come like clouds, so the airplanes are involved in this. You're going to come up, the Lord says, on that day, thoughts will come to your mind. You will devise an evil scheme and say, I will go up against the land of unwalled villages, and I will fall upon the quiet people who dwell securely, all of them dwelling without walls, having no bars and gates. So a lot of things in there, and it goes on the rest of the chapter, who wins, how, what happens.
So let me put it into my language, I think, because I think that for an audience too, because people can go in and read that, and I recommend reading Ezekiel 37 and 38, because as Pastor Steve's talking about here, these are war fighting principles. When you read those parts of the Bible, they're really talking about war fighting and the principles of war, the idea of objective and the idea of the concentration of the types of forces that you need to bring together, right? The laying out of the different nations, and all those nations are still in play today. I mean, Libya, Sudan, which at the time represented pretty much all of East Africa. Now you have, Ethiopia, you've got Somalia, so you got the Red Sea lined up there, of course, Iran, Persian Gulf. I mean, all the things that are sort of modern day pieces of geography that we all understand. When you're talking about, things from the north, I mean, today, in the last 24 hours, Russia came out and said that they are going to continue to be the main supplier of weapon systems to Iran, not because they believe in Iran as the type of nation that it is, which is really a radical Islamist state controlled by Khomeini and some very, very radical leaders. It's because there's an alliance that is starting to take place, a modern day alliance that the Bible, when you go back to what Pastor Steve just read about, this alliance that is starting to form again. And these alliances are biblical in nature. And if we don't pay attention to what the outcomes were at that time, now that time being in the, sort of the biblical times, then we will lose sight of the kinds of things that we must focus on. Now, we've got a couple minutes left. One of the things that that you read there that, like events, like, sort of tectonic events, right? An awakening. We talked about, we're running these events called the Reawaken America Tour, a great awakening. The assassination attempt of President Trump, to me, the fact that he survived and miraculously survived, thank God we'd be in a completely different place right now, consequentially, if the assassin had been successful. So
I don't like burritos. I'm not big on Mexican food at all.
Is that an awakening moment for the United States of America? Is, to me, if you look at it biblically, you look at it spiritually, and you say, okay, I'm a believer. God gave us one more chance. Is that, should I believe like that?
Tally, I've been watching Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares on YouTube, and when you watch that, you feel like going out and cooking a steak or something. I've actually done that.
So now I'm talking to you as a man talking to a man of faith, a pastor. Should I look at that experience that the world just had and say,
look, there's Gordon Ramsay there.
That says, I'm giving you a chance, America, but you've got to now take this chance. What do you think about that? How do you interpret that?
Well, believe it or not, 4 months before it happened on my YouTube channel, we delivered a prophecy that was very, very detailed about the fact that a bullet would pass by his right or graze his right ear, and he would be bleeding and he would fall down and he would get back up a changed man. So not only is it a sign from God, God predicted ahead of time so that we would not be asleep. So much of the population is just drunk on entertainment and drugs. And we need to be aware God is actively working in this nation to protect Donald Trump and to protect the people. But we have to go a step further. This nation cannot stay the same. The church cannot stay the same as what it's been doing.
Yeah.
And, I was away from this country for nearly 25 years. And I came back and I was really surprised. I mean, I knew that there were changes. America had changed, but it's almost unrecognizable. And the fact that the church is not teaching prophecy, not sounding the alarm, even the name Trump itself is in the Bible. It says, at the last trump, literally spelled that way in the King James Version. At the last trump, the dead in Christ will rise, saying it's tying end-time prophetic events to a man named Trump. The solar eclipses. I was the first to talk about that in Asia and Australia. Here you had maybe just a handful of preachers talking about it. And when I came here, I just realized so many people don't want to hear. They want life to go on as they're used to. But life is not going to go on as you're used to. If Trump had been assassinated, my goodness, it would have affected all of our lives in an adverse way. So what I'm here to say is there are prophecies further than this, more than what the assassination attempt, that was predicted. There are prophecies that got downloaded to me, 10 prophecies to save America. And these things need to change. The church needs to lead the charge. The church needs to lead. The church has always led. The church doesn't take responsibility for that, but we've always led.
So, we have a couple minutes left. I mean, how do you define the church? Because I've had this argument with pastors for the last couple of years. I get upset at all these pastors because I don't think they teach pastors leadership all that much. I think they teach them how to run nonprofits more than they teach them how to actually be leaders of flocks, leaders of congregations. How do you define the church? You say the church has to do something. What's the church? What's that mean?
Of course, there are many different ways you can say it. I'm not saying anyone with a building with the word church is the church. You have to believe Jesus and you have to teach the Bible. You have to at least do those two minimal things. And there are a lot of things that are not real churches to me. So I'm talking about the remnant believers that truly follow the Bible. Even those have gone into a soft message. They don't believe in prophecy. They don't believe that. They even believe separation of church and state. Like you can say God should be relegated to a corner, except on Saturday or Sunday he can come back out. Well, that's wrong. That's wrong. And we also teach a very soft message about love and grace. And we need fighters now. We need people who fight for justice. And this is what God loves about Donald Trump. It's not that he's a perfect moral man, but he's an agent of justice. And he needs to be even more. That's why he's going through the lawfare that he's going through. So he learns about justice and he would cry out to God using scriptures. He needs to quote, not just say God, but say Jesus. He needs to quote the Bible. When he does that, God will come and rescue America and help. But we need more people to say that. I mean, we need advisors around him to say that. And they're probably saying, no, Don't be too overtly Christian. Don't be too, no, the clock is way too late in the game.
Yeah.
We need to call out on the name of Jesus and actually call out on scriptures. When we quote scriptures, there's a lot of power that's released.
Amen.
That's how I believe Israel will be saved. That's how I believe America will be saved. It's not just through our own strength. At some point, we have to humble ourselves and say, we got a lot going for us, but we can't do it on our own anymore. We need Jesus. We need his word to help us when we call out that way. Justice will be delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so and for me, and we're coming to a close here, folks. If you go back into the founding of the United States of America, the founding is based on principally Christian values. And we have lost sight of those. We have actually allowed ourselves, over the last probably certainly 50 years, if not 100, but certainly 50, to just sort of go into a moral tailspin, a moral decline. And I think that one of the things that I firmly believe is that we can recover from this. We recover by going back to those principles and values that make America great, right? That make America what it is, that shining city on the
I'd love to get to chat to him, Shawnee.
hill.
Talia.
Matthew talks about it in the Bible. He actually describes the city on the hill, right? So Matthew, I forget, maybe Matthew 7, but don't hold me to that. But it's Matthew that talked about a city, built on a hill that we are all in search of. So as we go forward, I think Trump is the right person at the right time, and we are blessed that the good Lord decided not to allow him to be taken from us right now for this moment in history. So, Pastor, I really appreciate it. Again, where can they find you? The Trump's Unfinished Business and President Trump's Pro-Christian Accomplishments.
Yeah, those two books and more are on Amazon.com, but you can also find us at discoverchurch.online. You can go to YouTube.
Every 2 or 3 years. Then it has come down to reporting on a biblical worldview, Bible open in the news in months and then weeks. Now it's by the hour. I know I look thrashed this morning. I'm actually 29 years old. I've just been up since 2 a.m. That's why I look the way I do. There's no time to sleep anymore. God is getting his people ready. And that is on both sides. God is getting his people ready in the church, and God is getting his people ready in Israel. God is going to work, and it's happening right now. And so this week has been an epic week.
Okay, this is 3 weeks old, so it's pretty recent.
Has caused global anger and rage, and yet at the exact same time, it has caused global and epic rejoicing. You're going to hear this. You're going to be quite surprised as to who's rejoicing. But God's on the move. And there are overwhelming reports around the world, but tremendous reports from the Middle East, Iran, Syria, Israel, Turkey, Egypt, where people are coming to know the Lord. And
I trolled the Muslims with this. 55,000 mosques have shut down in Iran. That's how many mosques are shut down, 55,000. And they hate it, but I just posted to them, they hate it.
It is not a small amount of people. It is not a small amount of people. So not only was this week an epic week, as we'll hear today regarding the advancement of Israel in dealing with Hezbollah, which was an absolute unbelievable.
Phil, we all basically follow the same pastors, don't we? If not the same pastors, the same type of preaching.
Unbelievably, it had to be a God thing because it was so weird. It was so weird for Hezbollah to get involved. They inserted themselves into a fight that had Israel focused on the south. And in 1 week's time, Israel's longtime, perennial enemy was decimated, and the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, was destroyed the other day. And we're going to talk about that, why it matters. And if for some of you who are saying today, I don't like the way the tone of that is, let me put it to you in a biblical tone. If King David were here today, he'd be walking around with Nasrallah's head. We don't want to hear that in a time like this. It's because we're what my flight instructor used to say. Jack, the guy in the tower, you better pay attention. Because the guy in the control tower is fat, dumb, and happy. He goes home at the end of his shift. You're still stuck up here in the sky.
Good,
and a lot of people
terrible.
in America and in the West are just that way. They're just content and everything is fine as long as I can get a donut or my coffee, I'm good. Well, friends, that's not the way the world is going right now. And in several locations in the world, we're at war.
Wow.
And this is a critical time. On top of all of it, God in his orchestration of bringing us to the 11th chapter of the book of Romans at a time like this is not by our choosing. If you go here, you know this. The timing of this is impossible. And then the events that are transpiring around the world, the events that are taking place with Israel, and the events of what is called the church in America. When I say the church in air quotes, the church that says it's a church, but it turns its back on Israel, is no New Testament church. These are prophetic times. And on top of all of that, what a week for us to make a huge addition to our Real Life Network team. And that is we now have a full-time journalist, 3-time Emmy Award-winning journalist that by God's grace, we just stole from Newsmax and has placed him in Israel, in Jerusalem, as our director of news. And so I want you to see our first news broadcast from Jerusalem. So put your eyes to the screen.
Israel's patience with Hezbollah has run out. We're standing in central Tel Aviv. This bustling street corner is directly across from Military Central Command. And today, the IDF is conducting new airstrikes, destroying the infrastructure the Lebanese terrorists have spent 20 years building. The Israeli Air Force hit over 1,600 Hezbollah targets on Monday, killing, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry, over 500 people. The Israeli offensive meant to stop the daily rocket fire from Hezbollah. 9,000 since October 7th, and also to return the 60,000 Israelis who live on the Lebanese border back to their homes. Thousands in South Lebanon heeded the warning from Israel by text and by phone to get out of harm's way, while Israeli forces destroyed weapons depots in private homes, apartment buildings where Hezbollah was storing heavy weaponry. Here's the chief spokesman for the IDF.
In these images, you can see how Hezbollah hides long-range rockets with range of hundreds of kilometers. You can see here that the rocket is stored on an hydraulic system and is prepared for a launch out of an opening in the roof. Under this attic, a family lives and serves as a human shield for Hezbollah.
Prime Minister Netanyahu is speaking directly to the people of Lebanon, offering them the same message he gave the people.
That's so evil, that putting a missile in an apartment blocks like that. Wow.
Of Gaza before Israel decimated Hamas.
Israel's war is not with you. It's with Hezbollah. For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage. To defend our people against Hezbollah strikes, we must take out those weapons.
In response to Israel's targeted strikes on weapons depots, Hezbollah launched dozens of rockets indiscriminately into Israel, trying to kill civilians. Warning sirens have been sounding across the north, including the port city of Haifa, the surrounding areas, and the northern part of Judea and Samaria. No one was...
Shawnee, a lot of my stuff I use against Islam comes from Christian Prince. And that Sam Ahub, I think his name is, he's pretty good at it as well.
Injured. Israel says the strikes on Hezbollah are far from over. Meantime, the United States is deploying additional troops here to the Middle East. The Pentagon didn't say how many or what their mission would be. There are already 40,000 American forces in the region and an estimated 86,000 Americans living in Lebanon.
Wow, that many.
Network, I'm Daniel Cohen.
86,000 living in Lebanon. I didn't know that.
Wow. Great job. You're going to be seeing a lot more of that, But listen, in the meantime, this is a precious.
Shawnee, I've never heard one Muslim win one single point against Christian Prince. I've never heard any of them win one single point.
Just precious moment for all of us. It's been a while now. Not too long ago, Amir Sarfati and I had some coffee and a meal together. He was in town and he didn't want anybody to know. He was just taking a break, and so we had some time together. And then he got back into Israel, where Amir is, of course, reaching the world through Behold Israel. If you do not have Amir's social media platforms, you must get Behold Israel and stay up to date. But he's just another and yet unique. I met Amir, I think maybe he was 21 or 22 years old. He's been my brother ever since. We watched his kids grow up as he's watched mine. But joining us live right now from just below the Lebanese border, Amir is in his bomb shelter in his home as war is taking place around him. Amir, alive, can you hear us, brother? Are you there?
Yes, shalom, Jack.
We love Amir Sarfati.
Thankfully, I managed to make it to our studio because we're having major strikes in Lebanon, and thankfully the rate of rocket launching towards Galilee is significantly lower than what it should have been should Nasrallah was still alive. So I managed to get to the studio, so everybody will have a better footage this morning.
Amir, that's good news. That's good to hear. And so is it safe to say that we're looking at the residual, what's left of some Hezbollah loyalists? Is that what we're seeing with these fires?
Yeah. First of all, before we continue, sirens might go off, and I'll have to take off to a bomb shelter, which is in the floor of this building. So if you hear the siren goes off on my phone, I'm going to be gone for 10 minutes. But to your question, Hezbollah has tens of thousands of terrorists that are fully armed, and they have still tens of thousands of rockets. The problem is that they have no command and control anymore. We destroyed the way they can communicate with each other. So instead of coordinating large barrages that should come from 15 different launchers, they only use one at a time now because there's no way to coordinate anything.
Wow.
And so instead of getting 100
Israel's done a master stroke completely throughout this war.
rockets at a time, we get 5, we get 8, we get 10. And that's a major win. Yeah. It all goes back, Jack, to 12 days ago when the rules of the game in the Middle East have changed and completely changed. Israel was so looked down by our enemies, and the enemies were so emboldened by still the October 7th attack. And a lot of people are asking me, how come you guys were so great in Lebanon and something so big happened to you in the southern border? And it's very simple. It's because we were so fixed on Lebanon the whole time that we actually abandoned and neglected the southern front. But regarding Lebanon, we've known where Nasrallah is for the longest time. We have the exact coordinate of each and every one of the launchers. We just didn't want to start a war because
wow, they knew the coordinates of each and every launcher. Wow, Mossad's brilliant. They're the best spy system in the world.
There's no point of fighting major wars in two fronts at the same time. We needed to finish Hamas first and then get all of our maneuvering divisions, commandos and
Wow.
tanks and others to the northern border. And
Tell you, he's an ex-Muslim that knows the Quran backwards, and he takes on all comers and debates them. I'll see if I can find. I'll find his channel. Hang on.
and we also needed some element of surprise to completely cut off the control and command among Hezbollah. And that's what we did with the pagers, followed by the radio systems, followed by the elimination of the top commanders of the elite force of Hezbollah, the Radwan force, last Friday. And since then, Hezbollah is unable to function, and the road to kill Nasrallah, which is, by the way, the most significant elimination of a terrorist leader in the history of planet Earth, way bigger than Bin Laden or even ISIS leader, because Nasrallah is running the largest terror group on planet Earth.
You know what's amazing about what Amir just said is I too have been stepping through this significance of Nasrallah being eliminated. You say, well, most Americans don't even know who he is because they don't pay attention. The guy's been the mastermind of not only raping the Lebanese people of so much, but you remember, this is a terrorist group that took over a country called Lebanon. What you don't realize, people, is when you talk about Bible land, Lebanon is Bible land as well. And it's been held captive by this terrorist organization. And so, as Amir just said a moment ago, I had been thinking in my mind, on what scale does this match? Soleimani was one thing, al-Baghdadi was another thing, and those are big things. But Nasrallah is something, to me, in my mind, when it comes to just the amount of Israeli death in connection to one man's orders. I'm not even sure if Goliath under the Philistine regime could match what Nasrallah. This is the level of evil that we're talking about. And we're sitting and we're living through it right now, friends, in world history. You're watching this go on. And we're going to go in this conversation, which, by the way, 100% unrehearsed. We did not text points. Amir and I, we don't do that stuff. We just let it go. And one thing sure, we stay in the Bible, we do well.
Yeah.
And so that said, Amir, we saw rather quickly here in the U.S.
I wonder how CP manages to get away with insulting people. Oh, it's on YouTube. Yeah, they can stop there. I wonder how he gets away with insulting people, because he does.
That the governing powers of Iran immediately went into secured bomb shelter locations for fear of Israeli retaliation, frankly, everybody, retaliation, because it's Iran that has been the supplier and the provider and has had Nasrallah and Hezbollah on the payroll. Amir, what can you tell us about the current moment?
Wow, this is a brilliant interview. I'm really enjoying this.
The atmospherics of Tehran.
Wow.
Yeah. They're shaking right now. They are on the run. They are in hysteria because right now the Iranians understand that if we got into the communications and the locations of the top brass of Hezbollah, that means we know everything about the Iranians themselves. And we proved that a couple months ago when we eliminated Ismail Haniyeh, not just in Tehran, but in the most secured part of Tehran, where only the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC, are hosting their VIPs 2 kilometers away from the presidential palace, and we eliminated Hamas top leader right there in the heart of Tehran, which means we are having on our payroll several people within the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, as much as we have people within Hezbollah as well. Look, the one thing that Israel failed to do in Gaza for the last 20 years is to, ever since we pulled out of Gaza, is human intelligence. We thought that we can rely on signals only, SIGINT, and we failed. There is no replacement for human intelligence, for people. We need to know how people. There is no signal that can give you that. You need to have people around. And we are eliminating one commander after the other because we have people inside. And we do have people within Iran's top brass, and they know that. That's why they took their supreme leader to a secure area right now. Now, Jack, Hezbollah was formed by Iran to be their basically, I guess, buffer in order for them to continue to work quietly on their nuclear program. They knew that Israel will have to think twice if we want to attack Iran, because Hezbollah then will strike us with tens of thousands of rockets. And so now they lost that asset. That asset does not function anymore. And with that, all of their other assets are collapsing. 35 minutes ago, Israel decimated the Houthis in Yemen right now. They're now unfunctional in Yemen. And in the last 2 weeks, they fired
I'm with the crowd
towards Tel Aviv. And so one proxy after the other, they're losing. And this is, my friend, why Iran cannot lean on their proxies, but Iran will have to lean on other countries to come against Israel.
Yeah, well said. Everybody, just put things in perspective.
No.
The strangeness of this. What is going on from a biblical vantage point? Number one, first of all, let's all remember this.
Phil, I don't think he respects them. He mocks the hell out of them, like I do. I learned from him.
None of this would be taking place except for May 14th, 1948. You need to remember that. Israel was not a nation, and then Israel became a nation again. And if you want to learn the details about this, and I hope you do, you should read Ezekiel chapter 36. I read Ezekiel 36 yesterday. I got so excited. I've always loved it, but in light of current news, and I think this is how the believer should be living, I read Ezekiel chapter 36, and there it outlines what God is going to do with the nation of Israel before he gets the show on the road. And I got so excited. I went in. Lisa was reading the book. Poor thing. She was somewhere, peace and quiet. I said, you've got to read this. And in fact, read it. Here, read it and read it out loud. I want to hear it. You need to read it. And she starts reading it. And she read all of Ezekiel 38 out loud to me. And it was like watching the news unfold. And then you read Ezekiel 37, where the dry bones are coming together and God creates a nation in unbelief. He speaks to them from all corners of the earth, the Jews, and he says, come back to your own homeland that I've promised you, and I'll make a way for you. And he talks about bringing them back, and he says in the last days, you will come into the promised land that your fathers once inhabited, and there you will dwell, and your land will be built up, and you will plant vineyards. This is all happening. In fact, if you want to, if any of you are in the wine trade business, I know that there's I know a man who's in the wine syndicate of California. Some of the greatest wines being produced in the world right now is being produced in Israel. And God's Bible said that would happen. And all these things coming together regarding the reestablishment of Israel. And at the same time, friends, listen, skeptics, you got to put this together. At the same time that God says, I'll do this, he also says in Isaiah 43 that I will bring my children back into their land from the south, from the west, from the east, watch, and I will command the north, let my people come. And that commandment from the north, we believe clearly because of the results, was, do you remember when Ronald Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall? Did you know that quickly over 600,000 Russian-born Jews made Aliyah? They moved immediately to Israel, and no wonder God said to the north, I command you, let my people come. And that's Isaiah 43. You can read that later. Putting things into context, where are we today? We are now going through an area where I personally believe it's dovetailing with Romans chapter 11, where there's been a blindness over the eyes of the Jew until now, a stupor where they cannot see. But we're starting to see many Jewish people come to faith in Christ. What's going on? I believe that Amir and I talking together right now, Daniel Cohen, In Country, everything that you and I are studying, we're at the end of the church age, everybody. The church in America, the church in the world has gone crazy, woke, weird. But the Bible said there'll be a remnant. There'll always be a few. I think that we're living in a time like that. Jesus said to the church at Philadelphia in the last days, you've kept my word, you've not denied my name, and so I will keep you from the hour that will come upon the entire world to try all those who dwell on the earth. Why? What's going on? We are heading toward a time that is a setup. It is the pieces being put into place. Because Amir, I think what might happen, speculation now, everybody, speculation, and I'm dying to hear what you might think about this. Could it be, Amir, that you guys are so successful regarding Hezbollah now, this morning, last night? My alarm's been going off too. I texted you earlier. Was that coming from Yemen? Was this a launch from Yemen? The Houthis? Don't you think if you were the Houthis, they're a terrorist group. If you've seen what's happened to Hamas, then you see what happened this week to Hezbollah. Don't you think you would just put your missile away? No, instead they're sending it now. They're the next wave. So Amir reported, obviously correctly, that Israel's now dealing with Yemen. Listen, the only way that you can keep your country safe is stop shooting at Israel. You'll be fine. Just don't shoot at them like that. But Israel believes that they're fighting for their existence. You and I know our Bibles. We know better. But Amir, I'm curious. What if you guys are successful with Hamas, with Hezbollah, with Iran in the sense that they calm down and the Houthis are eliminated? Do you possibly see this being a peace for Israel that sets up the Ezekiel 38 description of a land who dwells in peace, that Rosh, Meshach, and Tubal will see them dwelling in peace, and they could come to Iran's aid? Do you see any significance to this perhaps soon coming peace?
Absolutely. I believe that what we're seeing right now is the preparation for a period where Israel will dominate the Middle East. And we are already, look, we call the shots right now. We told an Iranian cargo plane to turn around and go back to Iran. I mean, he was flying actually to Beirut. And we said, you're not flying to Beirut anymore.
No Beirut for you.
No, exactly. We are not allowing anything to come into Lebanon from Iran. We are blockading Lebanon. We are destroying. Just in the last 4 hours, Jack, we attacked in Syria, in Lebanon, in Yemen, and in Gaza. And this is just within few hours. The Arab world is shocked, and may I say, in the Middle East and in Middle Eastern culture, everybody wants to be on the side of the victor. And I want to tell you also that Hezbollah not only killed Americans, hundreds of Americans, and also Europeans and Israelis, but Hezbollah butchered tens of thousands of Arabs, mostly from Syria, which is exactly why all across the Sunni world, videos.
Sorry guys, I had to get my lunch.
The one that everybody called a man of genocide, a murderer, or a crime performer, all of that, everybody's now praising him. Why?
Okay, Talia, good night. Sorry I missed you.
Person in the last 70-something years that would.
Okay, Phil, God bless, mate.
And that was the most significant decision of his lifetime. And may I also add, he took that decision 10 minutes before he got to speak at the UN General Assembly.
Okay, watch this.
And why he gave, go ahead.
Time out. Time out. No, because he's touching on something that you have to know. First of all, it feels like the world hates Israel. it feels like the world hates Netanyahu. It feels like that because the media makes it sound that way. Okay, all of a sudden, there's been no global leader in the world of late. None. You understand that? It's a leaderless world.
Yep.
Right now, when Amir said that the Arab world is rejoicing, thanking, clapping over the orders of Israel to destroy Hamas, destroy Hezbollah. So part of this
Saudi Arabia, they don't get on with the others.
They want to do trade with Israel. They want to live. They want to go to soccer games. They want to live their life. And these nations have been commandeered by the doctrines of Islam. And then the doctrines of Islam have brought forth these radical groups. So now listen, what Amir just said was not hyperbole. The Arab world, they're not going to report that on CNN. They're not going to report it on probably on Fox, or I have to be careful. We're on Fox right now as I speak. So it's not popular to report this. Wherever there's weakness, there's violence. Where there's strength, there's calm. And we are in this middle place. And so, Amir, if you might, as much as we can, when things began to happen, we were texting, and there were some others. Now, Amir is a great source, and he's got his resources, and I have some resources. And so I'm listening and watching and reading these things going on. And I even got a hold of some Lebanese friends, and I said, Nasrallah's dead. He's dead. And they said, he's not dead. The Lebanese news is saying he's alive. I don't care. He's dead. Well, we shall see. And so we saw. Yeah. And what was going on, and I want Amir to walk us through the detail that he brings. So mark this. And this, do you guys ever read your Old Testament? Anybody? If you don't read your Old Testament,
oh, no way.
Or you need to stay here and start reading your Old Testament. Here's a reason.
Can you do it express mail?
Is something right out of maybe a chapter or a page of First or Second Kings or Chronicles or Samuel. It's amazing. Why? Watch.
I thought I won't just post it. I'll ring him first.
Yep.
Oh, and we
Netanyahu,
never forget, but because we had so much.
Not
They don't yet sleep yet.
Going down to the shops
with this team had this plan.
I got enough cash to get us through till it
But
comes.
thank God for the first time.
And it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, so it'll be by tomorrow. If you get there by 3, it'll be there by tomorrow. Cool. How is your mum?
You saw the news. Biden said they didn't
I
call
just fed mum.
before they did this. You want to know why they didn't call? Because every time Israel would call and let our top brass and president know, they leaked it.
And
They leaked it. So Israel's smart. And they did what they had to do. So Amir, fill in the details.
Cool.
We're talking about, I want you to hit on the F-35s. I want you to hit on
Okay, then.
circumcised version of the bunker busters
Okay, see
that
ya.
you guys used. And the earthquake, the register, and the correlation of the speech in New York City.
Yeah.
Can you bring that
Yeah,
together?
first of all, I think that I'm thankful that you raised the subject of us not informing the U.S. administration, and not only that,
She's my mum, boss. I'll do anything for her.
it would have been leaked, but also we would be pressured not to do it. I mean, it goes both ways. They tell us not to do it, and they leak the information for others to get ready in case we decide to do it. So Netanyahu's one condition to his defense minister, our defense minister is just a mole of the U.S. administration. And so he said to him, the only way that we're going to do it is if we tell the Americans that we do it when we finish dropping the bombs.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so F-15 eyes of Squadron 69 from Hatzerim Air Base near Beersheba took off, and we're talking about, as far as Nasrallah, it was only about 6 planes, but they dropped 83 tons of explosive on a 1.5 square mile area that left no chance for anyone to survive. Nasrallah suffocated, died in his bunker, together with 20 of his top officials, together with Iranian generals and many other people. And Nasrallah died instantly, but that's not it all started. You see, Nasrallah was so arrogant that he thought that if Netanyahu is flying to the UN to speak, there is no way they're going to do anything to me. But Netanyahu knew that that's exactly how Nasrallah thinks. So Netanyahu decided, I'm flying with my wife to the UN or the General Assembly to give a speech, and when I'm giving the speech, the planes will be already taking off. and so Netanyahu created a diversion plan.
Man, you're not going to beat the Jews at war. They're so clever.
To make Nasrallah think that business is as usual. Nasrallah called all of his friends to watch Netanyahu's speech.
Listen, wait. Listen. This is not speculation on Amir's part. Are you hearing this?
Yeah, man.
Hey, Netanyahu's going to speak in New York. Come on over. Bring some popcorn. Bring some falafel. It's going to be great. They're watching Netanyahu speak. And Amir, my excitement, I might interrupt you again. Just a warning. So pick it up from there.
I'm just going to tell you that he never mentioned Nasrallah. He didn't want Nasrallah. He mentioned Hezbollah, he mentioned Iran, but he never mentioned Nasrallah by name during his speech. So Nasrallah will not think that there's something weird. So and basically what he did, he put Iran on notice, and he said, if you ever strike and attack us, we will attack you anywhere at any given time, and there is no point that in Iran that we cannot reach. That was a direct threat to Iran, and when Netanyahu was done with his speech, everybody was scratching their head, asking themselves, why did he just threaten Iran and said nothing to Nasrallah, when Nasrallah is the one we're fighting against at the moment? And that's because he knew Nasrallah will be dead in just 20 minutes. And he knew that.
Okay. Time out. So the data will be made public, I'm sure, in the West. I hope, anyway. So Netanyahu is speaking in New York, as you just heard Amir say.
Man, this is a brilliant sermon. I'm enjoying this so much.
He authorized the assassination first, then he went to speak.
This is true. No, it's true. That's right. Green light. I have to go tell the world. And listen, here's what I think is fantastic. Follow me, everybody. He gives the order to take care of it right before he goes to speak. You should go back and watch the speech. What happened? First thing that happens when Netanyahu walks out onto the UN stage, the nations got up and they walked out on him. Oh, it's biblical. The Bible says in the last days, all the nations of the world will turn their back on Israel.
Wow.
Yet.
Literally did. Wow, that's so true. Wow.
The hostage families were in the mezzanine cheering and yelling and praising. And Netanyahu delivers his speech, and you can correlate his speech time to Lebanese time, and you can see where there is a man-made earthquake at a particular location, and that earthquake is the moment of the demise. Are you tracking?
Wow.
Netanyahu.
So that's why Iran hasn't gone after Israel really hard, because Israel knows where all the leaders are, and has access to the actual bedrooms they sleep in. Wow.
Who gets done with his speech? Some of you have seen the photos. He immediately goes off stage in New York, back to a secured room. They've released some of the photos. Netanyahu is on the phone, and they said it's done. It's all done. So what Amir and I know about Nasrallah is that he is because he's been in hiding for years. But you think he was with his friends watching Netanyahu speak? Guaranteed.
And wouldn't he have loved it when they turned their back on Israel and walked out? Joke's on you, champ.
And then there's a knock on the roof. Isn't this just like the God? Listen, some of you are not liking this. Listen, you need to grow up really quick spiritually. Watch. Listen, when you read the Old Testament, this is exactly how the Old Testament events played out. These kinds of things unfolded and happened. Why? Supernatural intervention of God. Because God is preparing. So, okay, Amir, go.
I just want to tell you, Jack, that it's amazing. On all Israeli secular television channels, the one phrase that I keep hearing is, "These are biblical days." They are using that very term.
Wow.
We live in biblical days. No one thinks anything less than this is greater than the 6 Days War. And because the 6 Days War did not affect the entire world, this will.
Yeah.
This is going to reshape not just the Middle East. It's going to, there was a demon. October 7th was demonic. And that demon manifested itself in not just Gaza, but it manifested itself all across the world at U.S. campuses and also in U.S. politics. But not only there, churches abandoned Israel. Churches hopped on that wagon. That's why it's amazing, because Romans 11, where you're at right now, was not written to the Jews. It was written to the church. and even then, they were already questioning, is Israel still God's people? And that was the first verse of Romans 11. Yes, God is not done with them. And why would Paul say that? Because they already then thought that maybe because the church is now God's people, he's no longer having Israel. And so I've had so many Christians, so-called Christians, writing me, accusing us for genocide, us for crimes, whereas we are the ones that have been attacked. You know, the Minister of Health of Lebanon yesterday said that there were ever since October 8th of last year, 1,600 Lebanese were killed. And I'm asking, why do you even have one? You shouldn't even have one dead. I mean, the war was not even with you. Why did you join this party? Why did you have to shoot rockets at us? We fought against Hamas. This was a war between Israel and Hamas. Why did any Lebanese have to get killed at all? You guys cannot shoot for a whole year 9,000 rockets at Israel, kill dozens of people, evacuate over 60,000 Israelis from their home, and then when we fight back, you say, hey, look how many people are getting killed. Hey, ceasefire. Hey, let's have something. Right? No, it's not working like that.
100% I'm with you. Yep.
The most unique opportunity for a major change in the Middle East that will prepare it, as you said, for a relatively peaceful time that will be so empowering for Israel that when the Ezekiel war comes, it is with us being safe, secure, and prosperous with unwalled villages and towns. Because these are the this is what we need to have in order for the Ezekiel war to come to pass. We need to have, Israel must be strong, prosperous, and safe.
She probably did, Shawnee.
Which is not the case until a few weeks ago. And we need to also be in a way that...
Look at them like rats coming out of the tunnels. What a charming bunch of people.
Iran will not join or dominate this whole thing, but just join. Even the Ezekiel account does not say that Iran started the war. Iran joins Gog from the land of Magog. Iran is not even initiating this whole thing. Iran will have to be quiet, submissive, and maybe even humiliated for a while, and not anymore lean on the proxies in which it invested billions of dollars. All of these billions just evaporated within 10 days. And so we are in biblical times. These are the most important days in the history of the state of Israel since 1948.
Amir, and to anyone, I've texted many of my Jewish friends who do not yet know Yeshua as Messiah, and I said, you must watch today's service. We're going to be coming to you from Chino Hills, but also from Israel, and I was pleading with them, please, please watch. But, you know, as you're saying this, and as we sit here today, I'm looking, as you were talking, I'm looking at Ezekiel 38, and I'm looking at, and please forgive me, I don't have, this is very fine print, and my eyes need moisture. But when you start reading Ezekiel 38, God says that he is, behold, I'm against you, O Gog, G-O-G. Gog is a man. It's a political military title. He commands the forces of a nation that dwells in the uttermost parts of the north from Jerusalem, known as Rosh, Meshach, and Tubal. It's Russia. It says that God will have to put a hook in his jaw and pull him into the battle to help Persia. It says right here. Because Persia has a desire to go up against Israel. Persia is Iran today in your Bibles. And the scriptures tell us that an evil thought will enter his mind that I will go, read the passage carefully. He says, I will be a guard to Persia, a guard. The word in Hebrew for guard is a supplier. Go look it up. Don't take my word for it. I will be a guard to them. All the while, it says that Israel will dwell in safety at that time. And the word in Hebrew for safety is an assumed peace. They think it's safe. The scripture goes on here to tell you that they will come up against the land that I, the Lord, brought back from the four corners of the earth to their promised land. And while they dwell in it, you will come against, and Persia will be no doubt a big player, but not the only player. Turkey is the player. Amir, you want to make a comment? I saw some news. There's a little triad going on right now today.
Absolutely, absolutely. When Netanyahu was done speaking in some other back rooms at the UN headquarters, the foreign ministers of Russia, Turkey, and Iran were meeting. I mean, it couldn't not be more biblical than this. Here you have a prime minister of a country that is about to restore its deterrence and bring back safety, security, and also national feeling of pride and joy to after a whole year of suffering so many blows. And in the back room, they're already plotting the next thing. But this time, Iran understands we can't lean on our proxies. Our proxies are falling apart. We need to hop on a wagon of some powerful countries with a much bigger strength and force that Israel, with all of its might of its air force and intelligence, even Israel cannot come against Russia, Turkey, and Iran combined, which is true, by the way. And that is exactly why the victory will belong to the Lord and not to us. And this is exactly why God says, I'm the one who is going to fight for them and have the victory for them.
That is right. Amir just paraphrased the latter end of Ezekiel 38. Because watch, this is how exciting it is. Church family, you've been studying the book of Romans. You've been studying chapter 11. You just heard Paul the last few weeks talk about that blind veil that's over their eyes, but it's going to be lifted in the Lord. It's got to be lifted in Christ. The Bible says that when the Jew turns to Messiah,
That's
the
when it
veil
comes
is
back.
lifted. All they have to do is turn to him. The veil is lifted. When that happens, this is critical. Ezekiel tells us that when God intervenes and annihilates, what is it, Amir? Does it say something like 5/6 of the invading armies of those nations are destroyed, or all of them?
All of them.
So they're going to be decimated when they do this coalition to destroy Israel. Here's the amazing thing, you guys. The Bible, and this is why we get so excited, not about war. We're not excited about war. That would be sick. We're excited about God keeping his word. Watch what happens. The scripture says from that moment on, Jews in the nation will...
Wow, I didn't know there was, Shawnee.
They will start... It doesn't mean the whole nation gets revived in a second. Jews will see that only God could have done this. Church family, he's been preparing them. And listen, he didn't cause October 7th, but he's using it. Satan did it. God's using it. He takes for what Satan means for evil, turns it around for good. The scales are starting to fall, and we're talking about as Gentiles being grafted into the olive tree. And we have a tendency to look at Israel like, oh boy, did they blow it? Excuse me. Without them, we would have no salvation. Let's remember that. Right now, they've been set aside so you and I can become believers. But all along through every generation, and Daniel Cohen's one of them, Amir Safate is another one, Jews have always gotten saved in every generation. It's just that what's coming is going to be a big lift. And I believe this personally. Is the rapture before or after Ezekiel? It's debated by good people on either side. They all agree, eschatologists, theologians, they all agree that the proximity of the rapture is either right before or right after the Ezekiel battle. We're talking about the Ezekiel battle right now, possibly forming, because we've never been this close before. Church family, if we're starting to see the Jews wake up to their scriptures, and all the while we've been standing here in the scriptures as Gentiles, Paul the Apostle said, you Gentiles should be following the scriptures and loving on the Jews to the point where you provoke them to jealousy. Here we are today. As September comes to an end, we enter the month of October shortly, which is going to be an October like no other October you've ever seen ever. And I don't mean in happy ways. God is moving. He's preparing hearts and minds. I want to say a few things, and I want Amir to keep going. Are you okay to keep going? No, not you. Amir. I want to make sure he's okay. What time, Amir, what time is it there right now?
7:12 p.m.
It's early. But I want to say these things. So
I'm up since 4. It's okay, don't worry.
I've been up since 2.
I know.
Anyway, listen, I want to remind everyone, please, there are so many precious, beautiful, wonderful Christians in Lebanon. We have to pray for them. They're suffering. Please pray for the Christian population of Lebanon. There's a contingency of believers in Jordan. I'm not sure if there's any Christians surviving anymore in Syria after ISIS, but may God be with our brothers and sisters there. But I want to say something, and I hope that you can use this. Maybe it's from God. So somebody might be watching this program right now, or you might even be here right now in this most unusual church service, but highly relevant. You want to go to a church that's relevant? Well, you're sitting in one right now, because we've got the news open and we've got the Bible open, and we're judging the times and the seasons against the scripture. Watch this. Let me be sarcastic. For nearly 1,000 years, the Islamic world has been calling for the annihilation of a Jew, and that the land promised to Abraham is actually their land. Time moves forward. That land was wasted, desolate, nothing. And in the year 135 AD, the Emperor Hadrian in Rome was fed up with the Jews and the desire for them to be led by themselves, to be led by self-governance. And the emperor was fed up, and the emperor said, you know what can I do to absolutely erase these people? They drive me crazy. And so the Emperor Hadrian in 135 AD said, I know what I'm going to do to insult the Jews. I will rename Jerusalem to Aelia Capitolina, and I'm going to take the land of Israel, and I'm going to call it Palestine, named after one of the 7 hills in Rome, named after their ancient enemies, the Philistines. The word Philistine and Palestinian means the invader. That's what the word means. A Roman emperor named Israel Palestine. Are you hearing this? And on May 14, 1948, that all changed. Now listen. All along the way, the Islamic world has said, we hate you, we want the land, and we're going to drive you into the sea. Everybody hearing me? How long has this been going on? For centuries. It's only gotten louder. I'm going somewhere with this. Stay tuned. Don't fall asleep. We want you dead. We want you dead. In Iran, under, what's his name? The little short guy. I don't know what happened to him. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Or if you can't say his name, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. He said, we are going to destroy Israel and we will push them into the sea. You ever hear this stupid chant, from the river to the sea? People don't even know what they're talking about when they say that. They're just reciting this chant that he put out there. But church family, listen to this. Here's my sarcasm. So you're Netanyahu, or so you're Jewish. You've been told all your life for generations, they're going to destroy us. They're going to kill us. They're going to drive us into the sea. And so Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis, and they're going to launch rockets, do terrorist attacks. All of a sudden, on your watch, my watch now, there's so much angst and unification to destroy Israel. Guess what, Israel? Remember, Israel's not reading the Bible like you do. To my Jewish friends who don't read the Bible, I have to confess, we know more about your scriptures than you do. How do I know this? Because Israel's leadership and population believes, you know what? We believe them. That's it. Finally, we do believe our enemies. They are going to obliterate us. They are going to annihilate us. Did you know that that's what they believe? That's what they're thinking now. Okay, we get it. Islam's going to destroy us. Iran's going to have a nuclear bomb any moment now. Maybe they have one. We're done. So all the poking and the poking and the poking. Provocation. Are you hearing me? All right. Israel says, okay, maybe you're right. You are going to annihilate us. Well, if you're going to annihilate us, we've got a lot of weapons. We might as well use them before we're annihilated. And so we'll use them. And all of a sudden, these Islamist terrorist groups are saying, ceasefire.
Yeah.
Wait, ceasefire. No. You know what's happened? You've been shouting it for hundreds and hundreds of years, and now Israel.
Yeah, you started it, Islam. You're getting your ass kicked, and now you want a ceasefire.
Israel finally believed you. They took you at your word. And so Israel responded to the attacks. If Israel believes that this is the end for them, no wonder why today in Tehran tonight they're shaking in their boots. Because they have believed our propaganda.
Wow.
Now
they would be shaking in their boots now. Wow, this guy's brilliant.
Do believe that we're going to destroy them. Uh-oh. You see? They push. But all of this will bring about what Amir, I think what we're speculating about is that this peace is coming in Israel, which will be the setup for the Ezekiel 38. Don't do that. It's like taunting someone so much, then they turn around and knock you out. You had it coming.
Yeah.
Now, Amir, bail me out of that very controversial statement I just made.
I would just say that for the Iranian Ayatollahs, the diaper moved from their head. You know where to. I will also tell you that a lot, peace in the Middle East normally is being brokered by a superpower. And a lot has to do with your elections. And we, by the way, since we don't know who's going to win, we need to take care of business now. Because God forbid, if on November 4th or 5th, the person that we don't want is going to win, then we know we're not going to have the flexibility that we have right now. And we need to take care of business right now. And by the way, the window of peace in the Middle East and opportunities to have more normalization agreements such with Saudi Arabia and others, this all has to do with who is going to win in these coming elections in America. You know, the elections in America matters a lot, not just to America. It matters a lot to the whole world, including us here. And I strongly believe that Israel is on a time crunch right now because of the date. And I do believe that October will be, as you hinted already, super tough, because there are so many powers that are trying to not allow Israel to live in peace, and to not allow Americans to live in peace, and to not allow common sense to rule. And this whole, progressive liberal propaganda will be on steroids throughout October. And we're going to see a lot of violence also in the attempt to disrupt the elections and also to maybe cause some changes there. So, I mean, I know one thing. When it comes to Israel, I know the end of the story. And any person that attempts to destroy me, I feel bad for them. I feel bad for them because they don't understand. They're not messing up with me, but they're messing up with the God of Israel. And he is the one who will not allow Israel to be destroyed. As Jeremiah says, as long as the moon, the stars, and the sun are there, Israel will stand as a nation before me. Only when the moon, the stars, and the sun will be gone, only then Israel will no longer be there.
Yep. So, Amir, I'm going to draw your attention to two news articles or interviews this last week. And I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you a question. Are you hearing something? I don't have
yeah, but never mind.
If you guys have Red Alert, by the way, everyone should go to your app store, get Red Alert. It's free. You should have it. Turn it off in church. but that's what he's listening for. I have that. It's connected to the Iron Dome system in the Israeli Defense Force. You should always have it. In our home, every time it goes off, we stop and we pray. It gives you the location of the trajectory of where it's going to land in a matter of 15 seconds. Get red alert on your device. Always keep it. Amir, so I'm putting you on the spot. 2 different interviews this week. The reporter asked Vladimir Putin, who do you want to win the U.S. election? Did you hear did you hear his answer?
Wow, what?
What was his answer? What was his answer?
He prefers Kamala Harris.
Okay, there was another interview.
Wow, there's the truth on Putin then. Wow.
Later on in the week, and it was the president of Iran. A news source interviewed him in New York, and they asked, who do you prefer to win the U.S. elections in November? Do you know the answer?
I know, because they tried to sabotage the campaign of the one they don't want, and they tried to also kill him. So obviously they prefer Kamala Harris.
The president of Iran said, we want Kamala Harris to be president. That should be a campaign ad.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen.
It should be a campaign ad. He's right. Wow.
Listen, if that steps on your politics, that's too bad. Because listen, here's the deal. I want to make something very, very super clear. I have to be careful how I say this, not for any other reason except that I want to keep a door open of opportunity. So this last week, I was supposed to be in Mar-a-Lago, and I was supposed to meet with a small group with President Trump. And I declined. I declined because I know some of the backstory about what's going on. You should all know this. That part of the platform committee for the Republican platform for Trump, if you remember the 2016 platform, it was the most conservative platform in Republican history, even more than Ronald Reagan's. And the reason why it was is because somebody I know wrote it. Trump was so overwhelmed and impressed by it that they adopted it. It even had a nickname, and I'm not going to tell you the nickname because then it would give the guy away. But it was awesome. In fact, it was the predecessor to the appointments of 3 Supreme Court justices and the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Unfortunately, right now, they've changed that platform. You know the old saying, why fix it if it's not broken? And so Trump has been hemorrhaging support. The evangelical community has walked out on Trump. He was first told of this when he was down 7%. He mocked it and made fun of it. He said, and I cannot tell you the actual language, but he says, I have the evangelicals, I have the evangelicals in the palm of my hand.
Wow.
And a certain person said, you're going to be surprised that you do not. And a week later, he was down 11% among Bible-believing Christians who vote. It may have changed since I woke up this morning, but he's lost somewhere around 17% of the evangelical vote, which means he won't be elected as president because he has to have the evangelical vote unless he gets the LGBTQ vote.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
And that's why you've been seeing a change in the platform and in some of the statements. You need to wake up, every single one of you who think that the election of anyone in this election is going to change anything regarding America's relationship between God and the U.S.
Yeah, it's done.
Listen, not a time to clap, it's a time to weep. I'm beginning to believe that people get excited, perhaps about Trump winning, because their stock and their income will increase and they'll get a tax break. Compared to the opponent, which honestly, you're going to be financially devastated. Not a joke. You already have been these last 4 years.
Yeah, he's right.
But let me make something very clear. I'm not a clown. I'm not being silly. I spoke to the president the day after he was shot.
Yep, he did.
But I have no control over God.
And Sean, he also plays sympathy for the devil from the Rolling Stones at some of these rallies.
Praying and seeking God's face. And so people, listen. Be careful about having a hoorah attitude. Our nation, including the church, is all but godless, prayerless.
Yeah. And look at the Olsteins, the Kenneth Copelands, the Benny Hinns. So many millions of people follow them, and they're getting nothing of value. They're just getting conned. Yet millions follow them.
Our nation and the church in America has made a mockery of God. We deserve, as a nation, Kamala Harris and the Democrat policies. That's what we deserve. Listen, on the day of whoever's elected, it will be God giving us the leader that he wants us to have. Are we supposed to vote? Yes. You're not God. Listen, stop trying to play God. Well, I'm not going to vote. I'll just let God work it out. Stop playing God. That is one of the dumbest, most arrogant things to say. You've got the opportunity to defend a republic by voting. But listen, the wavering on abortion, the number one single issue to God in America, is the slaughtering of innocents.
Sean, he also blatantly said he's not Christian, but I love Christians. I've seen him say it about 3 or 4 weeks
He will
ago.
never bless it. In fact, he cannot be God and bless it. And the most conservative of our leadership is wavering. Wake up, pray up, get up and vote. And here's what it's been reduced to. I'm going to be praying not for a president or to change everything. I'm not going to be voting for a Messiah. I already have one. I'm not going to be voting for a best friend. I'm not going to be voting for fill in the blank. I will be voting for somebody that I know there'll be less babies dying under Trump's administration than Harris's administration.
And that's the reason to vote Trump.
Did you hear what I said?
Yep.
There'll be less babies dying under his administration than Kamala's. Israel will have...
Okay, that's a compelling point, guys. So you'd have to vote for Trump just on that itself, wouldn't you?
more support under his than Kamala's. See, what I'm talking to you right now is pure Bible. It's not politics. This is biblical stewardship over the opportunity to vote. given to me by God, given to you by God. One guy is hated by the European.
Diane, I know about that Central Park 5. That happened in the 90s or something, didn't it? Teenage boys and they were framed.
Union now, and they want the other one to become a globalist. They want to unite Canada, Mexico, United States with Europe. They even have a name for it. I can tell you one thing. One guy running for office is not going to allow that. Listen, this is a rough endorsement. Because what I said was, Mr. President, the nation saw you on your knees, bloodied. I highly recommend that the next time the nation sees you on your knees, the next time you go public,
do it for God.
You should walk out from behind the podium and you should get on your knees and give Jesus Christ the glory if you can.
Imagine if you did.
If you can, honestly, if you can. It hasn't happened yet. Listen, this. Just like God did not delight in the vaporizing of Nasrallah, the Bible says that God weeps over the death of the wicked. Did you know that? You don't. I don't. I saw the news. I cheered. Heaven wept because Jesus died for Nasrallah. God wants this nation to turn around, but it can't. Friends, it can't turn around. I don't know if you understand this. It cannot. Somebody might say you don't understand economics because once he gets back in, the taxes will drop, industry will spool up, it will happen like this, the stock market will rise, we'll all have more money in our pocket, our 401ks will just do fantastic, and we're going to do great. That's not what I'm talking about. What shall it profit America if it gains the whole world and loses its own soul?
Yep.
Look, I'm voting for Trump because I can't vote for the other one. Because I'm responsible for the decisions I make. Choose today whom you'll serve. I'm not going to look at God in the face and say, I went with my feelings instead of Bible truth. I didn't want to vote for the orange man with crazy hair. I wanted to vote for the black Indian woman. I just wanted to do something cool and vote for the first female. It's insane. You're supposed to vote as a follower of Christ the way Christ would vote if he was voting, but he's not voting. Jesus isn't voting. Kings don't vote. Jesus is king. Friends and family.
Amen.
Keep your eye on the news. Bible open. Stay tuned. Be praying.
Yeah.
Because we're going to enter into waters where we've never sailed before. And the answer for America is terrifying to admit. The answer for America to be spared is the church. And she ain't looking so good.
Well, yeah, true.
Let's stand. Almighty God and Father, King of the universe, blessed art thou, Lord our God, who brings forth bread from the field. We're a nation of opulence and wealth and prosperity, and we've rarely stopped to thank you. Blessed are you, Lord God our Father. who brings forth fruit from the vine. You have blessed us in our history, but it's observant, it's obvious that your hand has been drifting further and further away from us. We see Florida, the devastation. We see the warnings of the geological issue in Yellowstone. We see the devastation on our borders in California and Arizona and in Texas and in our states. May every single one of us know that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father. He's the prophesied Messiah, atonement, Redeemer. He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. He's the one based on the Hebrew prophets that would come and die on the cross and on the third day be resurrected from the dead. He is the first fruits.
Amen.
He is our salvation. He is Yah. And God, we beg of you, Lord, in Jesus' name, that none of us would miss this glorious moment, that we are to point everyone to Jesus with what time we have left. May we end our lives faithful to you. And when we sing this song in closing, may we sing it, O Lord, like we've never meant it before. Because you alone are worthy. Our Lord, our Savior, our Redeemer, the one who has forgiven us of our sins. We praise you. And all God's people said, amen.
Okay, guys, I'll finish with a couple of testimonies from One for Israel.
Adam is an on-the-go restaurant owner. His business serves up mouth-watering dishes and perfectly paired.
The word, I didn't have emotions growing up. Life was sad, life was painful. I didn't want it to continue. And I realized that in my whole life, I had never actually thought about God. If somebody believed in God, if somebody said they were religious, I just thought they were stupid. Not only was I having thoughts of taking my life, at this point, I actually attempted not just once, but 3 nights in a row.
Amen to that, Shawnee.
It is more something than I thought. All of my grandparents were born in Eastern Europe, Yiddish-speaking Jews coming to America in the early part of the 20th century. When I was growing up, we were no longer Orthodox, but we were very definitely Jewish. For example, every year at Passover, I would ask the 4 questions, of course, beginning with Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halelot. Why is this night different from all other nights? And every year we gave the same answers, but did I believe it? The story of Moses and Pharaoh, the plagues, the miracles, did I really believe all that? No, of course not. Did anyone actually believe that? The idea of Jesus having anything at all to do with my life was just unthinkable. There was one time I remember I was young, I was at a mall or maybe a department store in December. They used to play the Christmas carols on the loudspeakers. And I heard things like, "O come, Emmanuel," and "Ransom captive Israel." And another one talks about little town of Bethlehem. And I thought, wait a minute, are we sure this has nothing to do with us? It doesn't sound that foreign. I suffered from severe depression. And even as a very young child, I was having thoughts of suicide. And I didn't really know why, because on the outside, things actually looked pretty good. So when I got to high school, my plan was very simple. Just keep my head down, hope that it doesn't last forever, and just try to get through it. And in college, I was a disc jockey, and that was something very new for me. And I could even say for the first time in my life, I was having fun, but it didn't last. I started having the old feelings and the old thoughts that I had when I was growing up. But now it was a little bit different because not only was I having thoughts of taking my life, at this point, I actually attempted suicide, not just once, but 3 nights in a row by taking large amounts of pills and alcohol. After the 3rd night, I was found and I was taken by ambulance to the hospital. It is more something than I thought. I went back home to New York, and while I was there, I learned some things about my family that I had never known before. For example, both of my grandfathers had actually committed suicide. And I would also later learn that one other, a great-grandfather back in the old country, did as well. The one point of optimism I had was having just hit rock bottom, I had nowhere to go but up. So I decided to give it a go, life. And I tried different jobs and different things, wasn't successful at anything. And I wasn't quite at the point of having the old thoughts, but I guess the best way I could explain it is I was maybe thinking about it. And then one day, out of the blue, I heard some very shocking news. A Jewish friend of mine came and told me that she now believes that Jesus is the Messiah. Right away, I started to say, what are you talking about? This isn't right. He's not for us. And by the next day, I realized I was very curious. And I realized that in my whole life, I had never actually thought about God. Prior to that, it was always very easy. If somebody believed in God, if somebody said they were religious, I just thought they were stupid. I wanted to begin at the beginning. So I started reading the book of Genesis. I read through it, I pored over it. All the while I was wrestling with the material. And by the time I finished the book of Genesis, I realized I was no longer just wrestling with an ancient text. I was wrestling with the living God. Now, my job that summer was selling ice cream from a cart right in the middle of New York City. So all day long, I sold ice cream, and that gave me plenty of time to think about everything I was reading. And I decided I want to jump ahead and start reading about Jesus. I had never read the New Testament in my life. I had never been in a church for any reason. I knew about the Crusades and the Inquisition, and I knew about the blood libels and the pogroms. And obviously, there's no good news in any of that. But now I'm going to the source. What in the world am I going to find in the pages of the New Testament? I'm now reading the story of a Jewish man who lived in a Jewish place and taught a group of Jewish followers and celebrated Jewish holidays and claimed to be the fulfillment of Jewish writings. On every single page of the New Testament, there is some kind of reference to Moses and the Jewish prophets. A number of times, Jesus had discussions with the leaders, and he was often calling them out for their hypocrisy. It was the same type of hypocrisy that I always assumed was part of all religion, but especially Christianity. So here I am kind of siding with him. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Might even be true, but I don't want it. So the only thing I knew to do was start reading it again. And I was about halfway through now for the second time. And there was a certain point of theology that I couldn't really grasp. And it dawned on me that maybe I don't need to have answers to every question today, but I wanted to take stock. Okay, what do I believe? I realized that at this point, I was reading no longer as an inquirer or as a skeptic. I was reading as somebody who was pretty much on board with the message. In other words, I believe this. I had just been reading about Jesus in the New Testament, and I was saying, yes, I agree. I want this. So I prayed. I need Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And God not only heard my prayer, he answered it immediately. And from that moment on, I became a new person. All of the stuff, combination of spiritual issues, psychological, emotional, nature, nurture, was lifted, and I was set free. It's now been 37 years. I've had challenges like anyone else, but I could say in all this time, I have not once thought about suicide. It's not a fad. It's not a phase. He didn't come to turn bad people into good people. He didn't come to make us religious. He didn't even come so that people suffering from severe depression can feel better, although I can tell you that's a wonderful bonus. But ultimately, he came to give life to spiritually dead people.
Amen.
All of us, because of sin, have separated ourselves from God, and Jesus came to provide the unique solution. This is a message of hope in an otherwise hopeless world.
Okay, guys, I'll finish off with one more, then I'm out. Oh, wrong one.
The party comes, the party goes. The new look comes, the new look goes. But our products last and last. Long-lasting products for sustainable cleaning. Vileda, it feels great to feel at home.
7 decades of my life, I thought I had the world by the tail. I was fiercely independent. I had studied many different faiths, and I had no idea how ignorant I was, and my sense had always been that the 3 Abrahamic faiths, as I understood them, had spent millennia arguing with each other and murdering each other at worst. But a couple of years ago in December, I had an experience and the Lord came for me. I was listening to my favorite music, which is Handel's Messiah, which I've listened to 10,000 times, and I heard the words for the first time in my life very clearly and understood. A trumpet shall sound, the dead shall be raised, incorruptible, and we will be changed. And I went out on my balcony, and every star in the heavens was singing Amen. Literally every star as I looked at the sky. And I had an experience of the love of the Lord, which was overwhelming. I couldn't breathe. My chest was so full of this love, not knowing what that was. I hadn't been evangelized or I wasn't in a church. And that night, I got on my knees and gave my life to Christ. And my life has been completely changed. You know, I'm a Canadian. I live on a little island off the west coast with only 2,500 people on it. And some believers came to me and encompassed me and encompassed my partner. And we found ourselves joining that congregation. Suddenly, the thought of going to Israel was put in my mind. But I had many excuses for not following through on it until I had dinner with a friend one night. 1 hour later, he completely planned a 1-month trip to Israel for me. But in the experience we had in a month there, the Lord just grabbed my heart. And when we left, within a week of coming back, I said to Janet, I have to return. The roots of Christianity are in Israel. The history, the story that is depicted in the Bible from cover to cover is about the land of Israel and the Lord's chosen people. In an effort to try and understand, I signed up for a One for Israel course with David Mishkin. I didn't know anything about it, but I started to watch One for Israel
We just saw that guy.
videos a lot more. It became very clear that the church is coming back together, and that the way it's coming together is through Messianic Judaism. That's when I got that One for Israel is actually actively involved in that sort of a ministry. Decided to return for a month, and I had an experience where I was simply called to account on the Sea of Galilee, and I got down on my knees and I asked the Lord to take away my pride. He is faithful to each and every one of us, not just me, and I'm absolutely sure that the promise is true. Jesus was a Jew. All of his followers, his disciples, were Jews. All of the early followers were Jewish. All of my congregation now know not only about Israel, but very specifically about my trips. I have One for Israel lit.
Okay, guys, I'm out. God bless.
I give it to all of them, the staff, the principals, everyone we met are just absolutely extraordinary people. The Lord's hand is on the ministry. This is where our faith comes from. Visit the land of Israel. It will